Chapter 161. Jianglu was defeated and fell outside the dojo. His face was slightly pale, and his eyes were filled with unwillingness. The art supremacy looked at Jianglu with disdain and mocked. "You're just an ant. What else can you do? Don't speak ill of my boss." Jianglu shouted angrily. It was obvious that the conflict this time was caused by someone talking bad about Jiang Chun behind his back. Jianglu and the others couldn't bear to listen to it, so they fought. It was a pity that they couldn't win. Jiang Chun watched from the side, but he didn't go over to help Jianglu up. He just stood aside and said softly, "A loss is a loss. It's your own fault for not being strong enough." "Boss!" Jianglu heard this and looked up with a trace of unwillingness and shame on his face. He knew Jiang Chen's personality. Although he seemed to be low-key, he was actually very proud. Moreover, he was very strict. Jianglu didn't know how to face Jiang Chun. After all, he wasn't the only one who lost face this time. Even Jiang Chun lost face. Of course, Jiang Chun didn't care. So what if his brother lost face? If he couldn't even bear to lose face for his brother, then the word brother would be too light. In 3 days, he will come to find you and fight again. Jiang Chun looked at the art supremacy in the dojo and said, "If he loses again in 3 days, I will ask him to destroy his own cultivation." The moment these words were spoken, everyone's expression changed, and they were all surprised. They didn't believe that Jianglu would destroy his own cultivation with a single sentence from Jiang Chun. They also didn't believe that Jianglu could defeat an art supremacy in 3 days. "You're the new disciple, right? The inner yard is abuzz with the news, but in my eyes, you're just a small character," the art supremacy said disdainfully. Then he lifted his chin and said arrogantly, 3 days? Even if it's 3 months or 3 years, I'll wait for him. Because he's just an ant, he'll never be a match for me in this lifetime." Jiang Chun chuckled. He did not pay any attention to this technique, venerable. He looked at Jianglu and asked, "Are you confident?" "Boss, I can do it," Jianglu said solemnly. He got up from the ground, looked around, and said loudly, 3 days later, we will fight again. If I lose, I will cripple my own cultivation." After saying that, Jianglu walked to Jiang Chen's side and left. 3 days? Heh, how can I bridge the gap between realms? 3 days later, it will be time for him to lose all face. Everyone chuckled, not believing Jiang Chen's words at all. A dozen breaths later, inside Jiang Chen's cave. "Do you know why you can't defeat him?" Jiang Chen sat cross-legged on the praying mat with a serious expression. He was no longer as playful as he usually was. "The gap between our realms is too big," Jianglu said without even thinking about it. "Realm?" Jiang Chen's face darkened, and he said coldly, "In your eyes, the reason why you lost was because your cultivation was inferior to your opponent's? If that's the case, why am I able to fight against those above my realm?" Faced with Jiang Chen's question, Jianglu suddenly fell silent. He thought to himself, boss is boss. He's strong, so it's normal for him to be able to fight against those above his realm. However, he couldn't. Jiang Chun stared at Jianglu and saw through Jianglu's thoughts at a glance. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh, saying, "The reason why you are strong is not only because of your cultivation, but also because you know what you are good at and what you should cultivate. Whatever you lack, you need to make up for it. It's like a circle. Only by making up for it can it become a circle." Jianglu nodded, as if he had understood something, but he still didn't know how Jiang Chun would help him defeat the technique venerable in 3 days. "You have the sacred body of Archean. Your physical body is extremely strong, but your spiritual power is extremely weak," Jiang Chun said, "but with your current cultivation, it's too late to make up for your spiritual power. Not to mention, it won't help your sacred body of Archean." "Boss, what should I do then?" Jianglu asked. "Speed up," Jiang Chun said seriously. "If you're fast enough, you can get close to your opponent before he makes a move. With your strong physical body, you can defeat your opponent. If you're fast enough, you won't be teased like a kite when you fought against that art supremacy." Jianglu's eyes flashed, as if he had suddenly realized something. However, how could he improve his speed in 3 days? The cultivation method that Jiang Chen taught him focused on cultivating the physical body, so it didn't help his speed. Fortunately, Jiang Chen had already thought about it. He pointed his finger, and it fell on Jiang Lu's forehead. A huge amount of information rushed into Jiang Lu's mind like a torrent. Overlooking the 9 heavens? Jiang Lu's eyes narrowed as a martial technique appeared in his mind. It was a body technique. However, this body technique only had 9 moves, 1 for each step. If he couldn't get close to his opponent after taking 9 steps, it would be useless. Overlooking the 9 heavens. With each step you take, your power and momentum will double. If you can take 9 steps, you won't even need to get close to your opponent. Your opponent will be intimidated by your power, Jiang Chen explained. This physical movement requires a strong body to support it. It's perfect for you. Of course, if you want something else, I can give it to you, Jiang Chen said. The top body technique of the human race, shrinking Earth into an inch so close, yet so far, and a thought of 1,000 miles. If you want it, I can give it to you. Jiang Chen was, of course, tempted, but he knew that Jiang Chen was not a stingy person. Jiang Chen had his reasons for giving him overlooking the world instead of shrinking Earth into an inch. Boss, is overlooking the 9 heavens more suitable for me than shrinking Earth into an inch? Jiang Chen asked. What do you think? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. Why aren't you going to cultivate? If you can master the first 3 steps of overlooking the 9 heavens in 3 days, you can defeat your opponent. What if I can't? Jiang Lu asked. If you can't master it, you will be defeated. At that time, cripple your own cultivation. Jiang Chen waved his hand. Go. Hearing this, Jiang Lu's expression turned serious. Without saying a word, he turned around and left. He didn't blame Jiang Chen. In fact, he understood that Jiang Chen was deliberately pressuring him. Only pressure could motivate him. This kid, Jiang Chen whispered. His heart was uncertain. He didn't know if Jiang Lu could master the first 3 steps of overlooking the 9 heavens in 3 days. If he couldn't, then even if Jiang Lu was defeated, Jiang Chen wouldn't let him cripple his own cultivation. Previously, the reason why he said that was to give Jiang Lu some pressure. Mo Xingtian, call by Feng Yu and Nayland Mayer over. Jiang Chen said. Since he gave Jiang Lu some pointers, of course, he wouldn't forget these 2 disciples. However, not long after, before Mo Xingtian could call by Feng Yu and Nayland Mayer over, a few angry shouts came from outside the cave. Newcomer, get out here. You've been very impressive recently. The whole inner court is talking about your name. Get out here and let me see. Jiang Chen frowned and smiled bitterly. It seemed that he wasn't low-key enough. After a few breaths, Jiang Chen walked out of the cave and saw 2 young men standing outside with arrogant faces. However, Jiang Chen's first words were, "Do you want to fight?" Chapter 162. These 3 words instantly stunned the 2 youths. They were indeed here to cause trouble, but they did not expect Jiang Chen to be so direct. Let's go to the training hall. He's quite arrogant. The 2 youths sneered and did not say anything else. They turned and walked toward the training hall. Jiang Chen followed her, and he happened to run into Bai Feng Yu and Nayland Mabe on the way. These 2 were originally a troublemaker. Wherever they went, people would follow them. Now, there were more than 10 inner court disciples surrounding the 2 of them. Moreover, these inner yard disciples were not weak. Some of them had already reached the upper level of the king realm. Even the technique paragon who had defeated Jiang Lu earlier was following behind Nayland May with a face full of eagerness. Master, Master, when the 2 of them saw Jiang Chen, they smiled and walked to Jiang Chen's side without caring about the feelings of others. Especially Nayland Mayer. She held Jiang Chen's hand and leaned her body on Jiang Chen's body. She looked like a spoiled kitten. This caused the group of people to explode. Nayland Mayer, who was already charming and moving, showed such a look now. Who could stand it? Even Jiang Chen's heart twitched violently. He thought to himself, what a monster! Master, where are you going? Nayland Mayer blinked her beautiful eyes and asked softly. I'm going for a walk, Jiang Chen said softly. He frowned and his arm shook. Stop fooling around. What's there to be afraid of? You won't lose anything. Nayland Mayer giggled. Jiang Chun was dumbfounded when he heard that. Thinking about it carefully, being held by a beauty like Nayland Mayer did not seem to be a loss. However, Bai Fengyu, who was at the side, was furious. She pouted her little mouth and looked unhappy, as if she was jealous. Bai Fengyu's face turned red, but she refused to back down. She walked over and held Jiang Chen's other hand. All of a sudden, the surrounding people exploded. It's bad enough that you're pulling one, but you're taking both of them? Wasn't this too much? After eating the meat, shouldn't he leave some soup behind? What's your relationship? This kid's looks aren't bad, but his strength is lacking. Two beauties, is there something wrong with your eyes? Many people spoke one after another, feeling jealous in their hearts. Especially the art sovereign, who said with disdain, just an ant. You're not allowed to talk about master like that. Nayland Mayer glared at him, seemingly angry. However, she looked even more charming when she was angry. Bai Fengyu's expression was gloomy. Extreme energy surged from his body. He coldly glanced at the technique's sovereign and said, Aunt, are you talking about yourself? Bai Fengyu's cultivation was almost the same as Jiang Lu's. However, she had the sacred body of Great Moon, and she majored in mental energy. In this way, Bai Fengyu could defeat the technique's sovereign that Jiang Lu couldn't defeat before. This was the saying that all professions reinforced and restrained each other. Umph! The technique's sovereign snorted contemptuously. He was quite concerned about Bai Fengyu and didn't quarrel with her. To be honest, if it wasn't for Jiang Lu coming to fight with you 3 days later, I can suppress you now. Jiang Chen said softly, You're just a whetstone that I left for Jiang Lu. You! The technique's sovereign was immediately angry. He coldly stared at Jiang Chun and said, You're just a lower immortal king. Where did you get the confidence to be so arrogant in front of me? I'm full of confidence. Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows. You'll know in 3 days. After saying that, Jiang Chun no longer paid attention to this person. He walked forward and soon arrived at the training hall. The two people had already arrived. At this moment, when they saw Jiang Chun, a trace of frivolity and contempt flashed in their eyes. You can choose one of us. One of them said, I'm an upper immortal king, sword king. I'm an upper immortal king, formation king, the other said. Hearing this, everyone's expression was quite strange. The sword king was still acceptable, but the formation king, was he dead? However, there was no way around it. Every profession was called that. When a formation master's cultivation reached the immortal king realm, he would be called formation king. Come at me together. Jiang Chun waved his hand. Don't waste time. I'm in a hurry. Are you sure? Ha! You're really funny. Are you in a hurry to embarrass yourself? The two people laughed. The long sword in the Sword King's hand vibrated. He said, I can suppress you alone. As his voice fell, he slashed out with his sword. The sword light was like a ray of moonlight, leaving an afterimage in the air. In an instant, it rushed in front of Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun did not care, but he felt a slight headache. It was because the battle had already started, but Bai Fengyu and Nayland Mayer were still unwilling to let go of his hand. Then, since that was the case, he could only take it head-on. Lunar eclipse. At this moment, Jiang Chun stood in the same place and did not move at all. In his eyes, a bright moon rose. A ray of pure white moonlight burst out from his eyes and directly shattered the sword light. At the same time, a terrifying mental power burst out like an invisible mental storm, shrouding the Sword King. Ding-dong, accompanied by a crisp sound. The Sword King's face turned pale, and the long sword in his hand fell to the ground. His forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his head was buzzing. His spiritual power was shattered by Jiang Chen's mental power. What about you? At this moment, Jiang Chen looked at the Array King and asked, Do you still want to fight? I have something to do at home. Goodbye. The Array King was quite decisive. Seeing that the Sword King did not even have the chance to retaliate, he turned and ran after saying goodbye. Master is so powerful. Of course, Master is the most powerful. Bai Fengyu and Nayland Mayer were excited. They felt that Jiang Chun was an invincible legend. All right, let's go back to the cave residence, Jiang Chun said softly. The two of them held hands and walked towards his cave residence. At this moment, the surrounding people were in an uproar. A man and two women going back to the cave residence? What were they going to do? My heart seems to be broken. F***CK. What's going on? 1 against 2. Scumbag. The ground was filled with the sound of broken hearts and crying. We're going to do something serious. Don't think too much, Nayland Mayer said with a smile. It would have been better if she did not say this. Once she said it, the sound of broken hearts became even louder. Something serious? What was it? This group of people had long been thinking the wrong way. Now that Nayland Mayer said it, it was not the wrong way. They had already made 18 turns. You shut up. Jiang Chen's old face was also slightly red. Even he himself was thinking the wrong way. Bai Fengyu spat. Her face was red, as if she was shy. However, in her heart, she was looking forward to it. Amazing. Hugging left and right. At this moment, Nian Chang'e walked over and patted Jiang Chen's shoulder. After giving him a thumbs up, she said mysteriously, I caught a pheasant. Do you want to eat it together? Saying that, Nian Chang'e looked at Bai Fengyu and Nayland Mayer with a meaningful look. She smiled and said, You need to nourish yourself. Chapter 163. Jiang Chen blushed again and said seriously, I'm really going to do something important. After saying that, Jiang Chen quickened his pace and hurriedly left with Bai Fengyu and Nayland Mayer. After returning to the cave abode, Jiang Chen shook off their hands and said seriously, Sit down. Oh. There were no outsiders, so Jiang Chen naturally wouldn't give them any face. As for Bai Fengyu and Nayland Mayer, they were also very obedient and didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They sat down obediently. How's your cultivation recently? Jiang Chen asked. I'm about to break through to the king realm. Bai Fengyu said, Master, why did you call us here? I'm about to break through too, Nayland Mayer said, and then smiled mischievously. She blinked her beautiful eyes and said, Let's hurry up and do something important. Jiang Chen rolled his eyes and said angrily, Do what you want. After saying that, Jiang Chen looked at Bai Fengyu and said, You major in mental energy. Try releasing your mental energy now. Okay. Bai Fengyu didn't know what Jiang Chen wanted to do, but she still obediently released her mental energy. In an instant, an invisible storm accompanied by the power of Yin swept up like a cold wind in the cave abode. As for Bai Fengyu, there was a trace of arrogance. It seemed that she was very satisfied with her current strength. Buzz! However, in the next second, Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. After his mental energy exploded, it directly destroyed Bai Fengyu's mental energy. Like crushing dry weeds, Bai Fengyu was stunned on the spot and had no strength to resist. You major in mental energy, and you're so weak. Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows and said coldly, Don't you feel embarrassed? Bai Fengyu opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. She majored in mental energy, and Jiang Chen was only a minor. In the end, Bai Fengyu's mental strength was completely unable to withstand a single blow from Jiang Chen. Although Jiang Chen was very strong, Bai Fengyu wasn't weak either. Moreover, she had the great moon saint physique. Jiang Chen had even imparted a cultivation technique to her. Even if he couldn't win, he shouldn't have acted in such a manner. Master, you are so fierce, Nayland Mayer said weakly. Looking at Jiang Chen being so serious, she felt guilty. And you, Jiang Chen's eyes focused, and he said, War dancers rely on spirit stones to cultivate, and at the same time, they have to master all kinds of dance music. How many songs have you mastered? 3. 3 songs. Nayland Mayer blushed. Even she felt embarrassed. Although war dancers were rare, there were still a few in the world. Furthermore, Nayland Mayer came from a famous sect, so she naturally had the war dancers' cultivation techniques and dance battle techniques. However, she was too lazy. Usually, she liked to tease people and didn't care about cultivation at all. You are about to break through to the king realm, but you have only mastered 3 songs? Jiang Chun was also dumbfounded. Mastering one song in each realm meant that she should have mastered 6 or 7 songs by now, right? This Grand War dancer had grasped the 3 melodies of Wuxiu. Wasn't this too much? You come here? Jiang Chun didn't want to say more. He formed seals with both hands, and array patterns appeared. An array formation was formed. He let Bai Fengyu stand in the array formation. Then, with a press of his hand, the array formation was activated. In an instant, Bai Fengyu's expression changed drastically. She felt an extremely terrifying mental strength erupting from the array formation. It was like a storm, constantly ravaging her, as if it wanted to tear her soul apart. From now on, you will cultivate in this array formation. When you can ignore the mental strength in this array formation, I will let you go. Jiang Chun said seriously. You can't relax on the path of cultivation. I know. Bai Fengyu's face was pale, and even speaking was very difficult. Jiang Chun saw this. Although he felt a little heartache, he couldn't be soft on this kind of thing. If she didn't suffer today, she might suffer in the future. As for you, Jiang Chun looked at Nayland Mayer again. But before he finished speaking, Nayland Mayer suddenly came to Jiang Chun's side and said, Master, will you accompany me to practice the war dance? Go and practice by yourself. I will check in a few days. Jiang Chun's face turned black. He pointed to the cave abode's door and said, Get out. Oh. Nayland Mayer looked very aggrieved, and her face was full of resentment. Sigh. It seemed that there was no chance of dancing with Master. Next, Jiang Chun sat cross-legged at the side and focused on his own cultivation. Occasionally, he would wake up and give Bai Fengyu some pointers. Time also passed slowly, until one day later, Jiang Chun's heart suddenly palpitated. At this moment, Jiang Chun opened his eyes. He thought to himself, What happened? Jiang Chun, quickly come out and take a look. At this moment, Nian Chang'e hurriedly shouted outside the cave abode, as if something big had happened. Jiang Chun hurriedly rushed out, but when he came outside the cave abode and saw the barbecue rack, his entire face collapsed. On the barbecue rack, the 9 nether phoenix was tied up and hung on it, and its body was sprinkled with all kinds of spices. Below its body, a ball of fire was burning. Jiang Chun, I caught a pheasant previously, but I couldn't roast it. Come and take a look. Is there a problem with this pheasant? Nian Chang'e frowned and said, I have been roasting it for half a day. You damn it. Jiang Chun didn't know what to say. Previously, Nian Chang'e had said that he had caught a pheasant and said that he would let Jiang Chun nourish it together. However, Jiang Chun never expected that the pheasant that Nian Chang'e caught was actually the 9 nether phoenix. This is my mount, Jiang Chun said snappily. With a flick of his finger, he unlocked the shackles on the 9 nether phoenix and asked with a face full of resentment, What's the situation? You were caught, and you didn't even know to send me a message? I could send a message my ass. This kid's mental strength is simply terrifying to the extreme. The 9 nether phoenix's expression was incomparably ugly. It glared fiercely at Nian Chang'e and said, Kid, you have guts. Nian Chang'e was very embarrassed. He never expected such a coincidence. He had casually caught a pheasant, and it was actually Jiang Chun's mount. Your mount is so ugly, Nian Chang'e muttered. No feathers, bald, not even as good as a spirit horse. You're comparing me to that kind of inferior thing? The 9 nether phoenix roared, feeling that it had been severely insulted. Forget it, you can't beat him. Jiang Chun curled his lips, grabbed the 9 nether phoenix's neck, and carried it into the cave. After that, Jiang Chun educated the 9 nether phoenix and, of course, gave it some pointers. After that, the days became peaceful again. Everyone was cultivating. Even Nayland Mayer was cultivating the war dance alone. Just like that, 3 days later. On this day, Jiang Chun came to the training hall very early. He stood alone at the edge of the training hall. His expression was indifferent, but his heart was not calm. It was because today was the day that Jianglu and the Technique Sovereign would fight. If Jianglu lost, although Jiang Chun wouldn't really let him destroy his own cultivation, it would still be a blow to Jianglu. Chapter 164. It shouldn't be a problem. Jiang Chun thought to himself. Jianglu was not weak. Since the awakening of the sacred body, his talent had improved a lot. It should not be a problem for him to reach the third step of the sovereign overlooking 9 heavens in 3 days. The morning sun shone down, warm and genial. It was full of vigor and vitality. Not long after, people came to the training hall one after another. Some were here to cultivate their martial skills, while others were here to watch today's battle. Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes and looked into the distance, but he did not see Jianglu's figure for a long time. After half an hour, the Art Supreme came, but Jianglu was still nowhere to be seen. Did something happen? Jiang Chen frowned. He knew that even if Jianglu could not defeat his opponent, he would not be afraid. Now that he had not come, something must have happened. Just as Jiang Chen was about to look for Jianglu, the Art Supreme came over and said contemptuously, "Where's your little brother? Are you too scared to come?" Afraid? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. He won't be afraid. You're not qualified to make him afraid. Where is he? The Art Supreme said mockingly. If he's afraid, then he's afraid. Why hide? It doesn't matter whether we fight or not. The outcome is already decided. Humph. Jiang Chen snorted and turned to leave to find Jianglu. At this moment, Jianglu's face was full of anxiety as he rushed over from a distance. As soon as Jianglu arrived at the training hall, he explained to Jiang Chun, "There was an accident. I'm late." However, Jiang Chun could feel that the breath in Jianglu's body was a little chaotic. It seemed that he had just fought. Moreover, Jianglu's left shoulder was slightly drooping. It seemed that he was injured. "Can you fight?" Jiang Chen asked. "Yes." Jianglu nodded and said, "Today, we must win." "Huh? Are you making me laugh?" The Art Supreme laughed wildly. "You? It's already dawn. There's no need to talk in your sleep, right? Fight. I don't want to talk to you anymore." Jianglu seemed to be very anxious. In any case, they were already in the training hall and could start fighting at any time. As his voice fell, a golden-red radiance erupted from Jianglu's body. The power of the sacred body of the Archean was like a golden battle suit draped over his body. Seeing this, the arcane exalt quickly retreated. At the same time, his spiritual energy surged. Along with his hand seals, a fire dragon appeared out of thin air. Accompanied by a dragon roar, the fire dragon rushed out and went straight to Jianglu's face. "You're asking to be humiliated. 3 days ago, you were defeated, and 3 days later, you're looking for humiliation." Disdainful voices rang out from all around. To them, this battle was not worth watching. In the eyes of the crowd, the outcome of this battle was already decided before it even began. However, in the next second, something that shocked everyone happened. Jianglu narrowed his eyes, and his aura suddenly skyrocketed, bringing with it a powerful aura. As he took a step forward, the earth trembled, and cracks appeared on the ground beneath his feet. "First step!" Jianglu shouted. His figure suddenly rushed out like a flash of a meteor. So fast. The arcane exalt was shocked, but his speed was not slow either. He moved to the side again. At the same time, the fire dragon had already rushed in front of Jianglu. "Scram!" Jiang Chen shouted and punched out. The bright fist light looked like it was made of gold. Boom! With a loud explosion, the golden red radiance surged. The fist light was almost unparalleled, and it shattered the fire dragon. Immediately after, Jianglu's aura skyrocketed again. His eyes were red, and he took the second step. Buzz! This time, Jianglu's voice was like a ghost. In a flash, he rushed in front of the arcane exalt. The arcane exalt was shocked. He hurriedly cast an earth wall to block Jianglu in front of him. His figure kept retreating, trying to distance himself again. Bang! However, before he could retreat far, the earth wall was shattered by Jianglu's punch. Before the arcane exalt could react, Jianglu's aura skyrocketed again. This time, Jianglu's entire body was red. It was as if his body was burning. In the next second, before anyone could react, a loud explosion came from where Jianglu was. Then, a terrifying aura spread out, like an invisible cage, and shrouded the arcane exalt. Earth element, thick earth shield. Metal element, long gold shield. The arcane exalt was quite strong. In a hurry, he cast 2 defensive spells of the earth element and metal element in succession. 2 shields, 1 yellow and 1 gold, shrouded him, and then forcibly repelled Jiang Chen's aura. However, before he could make another move, Jiang Lu had already rushed in front of him. "Can you still run?" Jiang Lu said coldly. He stretched out his arm, and his 5 fingers stretched out. A terrifying physical strength swept out and shattered the 2 shields. Then his 5 fingers clenched and locked onto the arcane exalt's neck. Bang! In the next moment, Jiang Lu grabbed the arcane exalt and slammed him on the ground. Fierce! Fierce! Simple, direct. All around, cries of surprise rang out. No one had thought that Jiang Lu would actually become so fierce. He took 3 steps forward and suppressed the arcane exalt with a palm strike. I admit defeat. The arcane exalt was dizzy from the hit, and his head was dizzy. He majored in mental strength, and his body was weak. After being hit like that, he felt like his body was about to explode. Jiang Lu heard this and threw him aside like trash. Then he looked at Jiang Chen excitedly and said, "Boss, I won." Jiang Chen nodded with a smile, feeling gratified. However, suddenly, Jiang Lu's face turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body swayed, and his aura weakened. Seeing this, Jiang Chen rushed to Jiang Lu's side and supported him, asking, "What's wrong?" "I'm fine," Jiang Lu said with a smile. "It was just an accident." Of course, Jiang Chen did not believe it. How could an accident cause serious injuries? Previously, when Jiang Lu came late, Jiang Chen suspected that there was an accident. Now, it seemed that something must have happened before Jiang Lu came to the training hall. "Who did it?" Jiang Chen asked directly. "It wasn't me." The arcane exalt shook his head and said, "I didn't hit him just now. I'm not talking about you." Jiang Chen squinted and said disdainfully, "You don't have the right to beat him up like that." Hearing this, the arcane exalt's face turned red, but he had to admit that Jiang Chen was right. As for Jiang Lu, he frowned and said, "Boss, forget it. I'll be fine after a few days of rest." "It's the Jiang family?" Jiang Chen immediately noticed the problem. If someone else had injured Jiang Lu, with his temper and personality, he would not have let it go. Jiang Lu would only soften when it came to his own family. "I'm really fine," Jiang Lu said with determination. "I'll go back first." With that, Jiang Lu struggled to get up and walked away shakily. Seeing this, Jiang Chen did not chase after him, nor did he ask. Since Jiang Lu was unwilling to say, he would not ask. However, Jiang Chen wouldn't just stand by and do nothing about it. Does the Jiang family also have disciples in the 4 cardinal divine halls? Jiang Chen thought. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he said softly, "Mo Xingtian, go investigate." Chapter 165. Mo Xingtian had been hiding in the dark. Ever since he had obtained the inheritance of the sunset demon god, his concealment skills had become more profound. As soon as he finished speaking, the air beside Jiang Chen distorted and Mo Xingtian disappeared. As for Jiang Chen, he went back to his abode to wait for news. Not long after, Mo Xingtian returned. "Master, the Sifang Divine Institute accepts disciples from all over the world. As long as one is talented enough, no matter which sect they belong to, they can enter the Sifang Divine Institute to cultivate." Mo Xingtian said, "According to my sources, there are indeed 3 people from the Qinchuan Jiang family who are cultivating in the Sifang Divine Institute." "Who?" Jiang Chen asked. "One of them has been in the heavenly court for many years. He is one of the top geniuses in the Sifang Divine Institute." Mo Xingtian said, "His name is Jiang Lingxiao." Jiang Chen shook his head and said, "The people from the heavenly court would not go so far as to bully people in the inner court. What about the other 2? "The other is an earth court disciple, Jiang Moluo. The other is an inner court disciple, Jiang Jiuqing," Mo Xingtian said. "I see." Jiang Chen nodded and immediately got up and left the cave abode. He did not continue asking because he already knew the answer. Zhang Lingxiao from the heavenly court and Zhang Jiuqing from the earth court would not bully an inner court disciple. Moreover, the Sifang Divine Institute had its own rules. The disciples of the outer court, inner court, earth court, and heavenly court were not allowed to come and go. Therefore, the person who injured Jiang Lu was naturally Zhang Jiuqing. However, Jiang Chun did not know what cultivation level Zhang Jiuqing had to be able to severely injure Jiang Lu. Jiang Lu had mastered the first 3 steps of the sovereign overlooking the 9 heavens, and his strength had increased greatly. In addition, he had the immemorial sacred body, and his physical body was extremely strong. Ordinary people were no match for Jiang Lu. Of course, Jiang Chun did not care about Jiang Jiuqing's cultivation level. He only knew that since Jiang Lu had been beaten up as his boss, he should stand up for him. Otherwise, what was the point of calling him boss? After leaving the cave abode, Jiang Chen's face was gloomy as he went straight to the 3rd peak. Along the way, he had already found out that Jiang Jiuqing was staying in a cave abode on the 3rd peak. Jiang Chun, you went to the 3rd summit to look for Jiang Jiuqing? That's right. Your surname is also Jiang, and you are also from the Qin Creek Jiang family, right? Jiang Jiuqing is ranked 11th in the inner yard. He's very strong. If you're with him, there won't be many people in the inner court who would dare to bully you. Many people spoke out, thinking that Jiang Chun was going to look for relatives and backers. In response, Jiang Chun remained silent. However, his ice-cold expression and eyes were terrifying. Something's not right. It looks like they're going to seek revenge. Let's follow them and see. Someone followed him all the way to the foot of the 3rd summit. At this moment, Jiang Chun leaped into the air and landed on the 3rd peak. Forming a seal with both hands, a lightning summoning talisman was formed. Wang! The air trembled and distorted. Tribulation clouds appeared out of thin air, and there was even the sound of thunder that reverberated like a great bell. Who is transcending the tribulation? How dare you? If he wanted to transcend the tribulation, he had to go somewhere else. What are you doing here at the 3rd summit? Are you courting death? In an instant, a group of people walked out from dozens of cave abodes on the 3rd summit with extremely gloomy expressions. That was because once they were implicated by the heavenly tribulation, they would have to transcend the tribulation as well. To Jiang Chun, transcending the tribulation was as simple as eating. However, to them, it was a trial with a slim chance of survival. They could not go through it casually. Zhang Jiuqing, come out. Jiang Chun narrowed his eyes and stood in the air like a vigorous ancient tree. His eyes were deep, as if there were stars in them. Upon closer inspection, the sun and moon seemed to be floating in the depths of his pupils. A vast mind energy, like an invisible thunderclap, spread out along with his words. Immediately, many people were shocked by the mental strength. Their faces turned pale, and their bodies swayed. Some people recognized Jiang Chun and exclaimed, "It's you? The one who transcended 4 heavenly tribulations in a day. You live on the 6th summit. What are you doing here? Don't transcend the tribulation here. We've never offended you." Some people were furious, while others wanted to calm the storm. However, at that moment, Jiang Chen's eyes were filled with merciless killing intent apart from anger. If you want to kill me, you can do it if you have the strength. If you kill the people around me, no matter how powerful you are, I will suppress you in the netherworld. Jiang Chun had said that before. Now, someone had attacked the people around Jiang Chun. Moreover, they were seriously injured. What made Jiang Chen's heart ache the most was that Jiang Lu had come with serious injuries for the sake of the 3-day agreement. Jiang Chen realized even more clearly that Jiang Lu hadn't gone to the appointment to defeat his rival, but to fight for Jiang Chen's honor. Therefore, today, no matter what, those who should be killed would be killed, and those who should fight would fight. Abandoned. At that moment, a slender young man in a white robe walked out from a cave abode. When he saw Jiang Chun for the first time, he said the word abandoned with disdain. Abandoned? Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows. After his rebirth, the word abandoned was a humiliation to him. You're an abandoned child, Jiang Jiuqing sneered. You were expelled from the Jiang family, and your parents' direct bloodline has been exterminated. If you're not an abandoned child, what are you? I really don't know what kind of dog's-it luck you had to be able to enter the Quadrant Divine Institute. When Jiang Chen heard this, the killing intent in his eyes became even more violent. He kept saying that he was an abandoned child, and he even mentioned the death of his parents' direct bloodline. How could Jiang Chen not be angry? My Jiang family's direct bloodline has never been exterminated, Jiang Chen said coldly. At least there's still me. You? The Jiang family is looking for you now. If you dare to take a step out of the Quadrant Divine Institute, what awaits you is death. Jiang Jiuqing said mockingly, You'd better stay here obediently and be a coward. No one will laugh at you. After he finished speaking, Jiang Jiuqing started laughing maniacally. His eyes and face were filled with contempt and disdain. There was also a strong sense of disdain. Today, I'm only here for one thing. Jiang Chun did not want to continue bickering with Jiang Jiuqing, and he directly asked, Did you injure Jiang Lu? You're talking about that servant? He's just the lowest servant of my Jiang family. He actually didn't greet me when he met me. Don't you think he deserves to be beaten? Jiang Jiuqing raised his eyebrows. I only casually taught him a lesson. I'm already being merciful by not crippling his cultivation. Is this merciful? Jiang Chen said softly, and the cold light in his eyes grew stronger. He waved his hand and removed the lightning summoning talisman, and the tribulation clouds in the sky dissipated. After all, Jiang Jiuqing had already appeared. Then, I'll be merciful today, Jiang Chen said softly, and his figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. Child's play? Jiang Jiuqing's eyes suddenly narrowed. Although he was amazed by Jiang Chen's speed, in his eyes, it was still a little slow. After all, Jiang Jiuqing's cultivation had reached the middle level of the Exalt realm. It far surpassed Jiang Chen's. Chapter 166. Before Jiang Chen could reach Jiang Jiuqing rose into the air. He glided through the air like a swallow. At the same time, a long zither appeared in front of him. Clang! Accompanied by the sound of music, a high-pitched zither tune sounded, and thunder exploded in the air. Zither supremacy? Jiang Chen narrowed his eyes. He thought to himself that such a rare profession had appeared. After martial arts, there were many branches in the path of cultivation. As far as the world knew, there were a total of 16 professions. Zither masters were among them. After reaching the supremacy realm, Zither masters were naturally known as Zither kings. Zither kings were similar to skill kings. They mainly cultivated spiritual power, but they were better at using zither music to kill enemies. Under the lingering sound of the zither, it could turn into illusions, materialize objects, and even turn into swords. It was a profession that could change into anything. At this moment, the sound of thunder was vast and mighty, and swords and sabers were standing in the air. These were all formed by the sound of the zither. You'll end up very miserably, abandoned son, Jiang Jiuqing sneered. The sound of the zither continued, and the sabers and swords danced in the air. It was like a storm that pressed down on Jiang Chen. That's it, Jiang Chen said disdainfully. He stood on the spot like a boulder. He allowed the sabers and swords to strike his body. He allowed the sound of the zither to pierce his ears and go deep into his mind. He did not move at all. What? Jiang Jiuqing was moved. Although he did not use his full strength, Jiang Chen should not be so relaxed. Could it be that the other party was also a zither supremacy? Or rather, the other party's spiritual power was above his? However, Jiang Jiuqing did not believe it. He was in the supremacy realm, and Jiang Chen had just entered the immortal king realm. The difference between their realms was like a chasm. No matter how strong Jiang Chen's spiritual power was, it was definitely inferior to his. However, Jiang Jiuqing did not know that Jiang Chen had cultivated to perfection in every realm. Not only was his physical body powerful, but his spiritual power was also far superior to that of a normal person. Not to mention, Jiang Chen had mastered countless martial skills and cultivation techniques. He didn't need to waste any effort to deal with a mere zither sound. Just like the performers in the Red Chamber, They only know how to play the zither, but they don't understand the meaning of the zither. Jiang Chen whispered, "The so-called zither music should be like this." Boom! The moment he finished speaking, a long zither formed by the power of heaven and earth appeared in front of Jiang Chen. Then his 10 fingers danced on the strings like butterflies. In an instant, wind and thunder roared, and it was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were fighting. The sound of horse hooves shook the earth. Battle cries resounded throughout the heavens. It was like a war song, and with a flick of the fingers, the color of the world changed. A hazy mist rose, like the smoke from a battlefield. The sunlight was dim, as if it was not covered by blood. The surrounding people were all startled and began to back away. This was because the closer they got to Jiang Chen, the more dangerous they felt. It was as if, at this moment, Jiang Chen was not a man, but a cavalry, an army of thousands. "This song stops the war," Jiang Chen whispered. His fingers were still dancing, and the sound of the zither continued to erupt. At times, it was like thunder, and at other times it sounded like someone was crying. Just like on the battlefield, the battle cries shook the heavens, but there were also people who were sad. Jiang Jiuqing was stunned on the spot. The spiritual energy in his body had long been scattered. Even his mental power was shackled by the cries of battle. It was as if he had been petrified. He knew that it was very dangerous, but he could not move at all. At the same time, an illusion appeared in his eyes. It was as if he was in an endless, bloodthirsty battlefield. The people around him were bleeding, and the world was dark. A sharp sword flew over and pierced through his glabella. The feeling of facing death almost made Jiang Jiuqing break down. However, he knew that this was an illusion and could not be treated as reality. However, he did not know that in reality, a sharp sword formed by the sound of the zither had already pierced through his dantian and crippled his cultivation. This song stops the war. This battle ends here. Before Jiang Jiuqing came back to his senses, Jiang Chen spoke in a soft voice before he left swiftly. So what if he was at the upper level of the Exalt realm? If he was really angry, what did Jiang Chen have to fear? Jiang Jiuqing has been crippled. Is that really the strength of a lower-level king stage cultivator? It's too terrifying. A song stops the war as if the heavens gave the order. With one song, this battle ended. Everyone exclaimed in admiration and shock. No one could believe that a lower-level king stage cultivator could cripple a middle-level Exalt stage zither supremacy. Perhaps only those prodigies in the underground courtyard can fight against him? That's not necessarily true. Jiang Jiuqing is only ranked 11th in the inner courtyard. He didn't even make it into the top 10. Which of the top 10 isn't a monster? No matter how strong Jiang Chen is, he won't be a match for the top 10. Many people were guessing how strong Jiang Chen was. No one could come to a conclusion if they compared him to the top 10 disciples of the inner courtyard without a real fight. However, many people thought that Jiang Chen was inferior to the top 10 disciples of the inner courtyard. Jiang Jiuqing has been crippled. At this moment, in Jiang Lu's cave, Jiang Chen stared at him and said, "Why don't you tell me? My father is a servant of Jiang Jiuqing." Jiang Lu smiled bitterly and said, "Logically speaking, I'm also his servant." Servant? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. No one is born to be a king, and no one is born to be a bandit. If you follow your ancestors, why do you continue to cultivate? Jiang Lu opened his mouth, but did not know what to say. He was silent as if he was thinking about something. Jiang Chen did not disturb him and stood quietly at the side. After a long time, Jiang Lu suddenly raised his head and looked at Jiang Chen. He asked, "Boss, if one day I leave the Jiang family, will you agree?" "As long as you're willing," Jiang Chen said. "One day, I will let my parents and ancestors get rid of their status as servants. I will build a clan," Jiang Lu said seriously. "Very good," Jiang Chen nodded. He was naturally happy that Jiang Lu had such thoughts. After all, one must have a goal, and it must be a big goal. One could even risk one's life for this goal. And if Jiang Lu wanted to leave the Jiang family, if he wanted to bring the people of his bloodline to leave and establish a clan outside, then there would definitely be a conflict with the Jiang family, or even start a war. You must be prepared to die. Jiang Chen looked at Jiang Lu meaningfully and said, "In the future, if I see your cowardice and cowardice again, then you don't have to call me boss anymore." "Never again?" Jiang Lu's eyes narrowed and said, "Definitely never again." Jiang Chen was satisfied. He nodded slightly and asked about Jiang Lu's injuries before leaving the place. At the same time, in a cave in the earth courtyard of the Quadrant Divine Institute, a skinny young man suddenly opened his eyes. His pupils flashed with cold-blooded killing intent. "Abandoned? I didn't expect you to join the Quadrant Divine Institute and cripple Jiang Jiuqing." The young man spoke softly. "Your life is mine." Chapter 167. Jiang Chen initially wanted to keep a low profile, but sometimes he had no choice. After entering the Four Tribulations in the Four Directions Divine Institute, he made Jiang Lu meet someone in 3 days. Now, he even crippled the Zither Highness, Jiang Jiuqing, in front of so many people. Currently, Jiang Chen was the most reputable person in the inner domain. However, there were still people who were unconvinced. The top 10 disciples of the inner domain had yet to make their moves. Perhaps they did not take Jiang Chen seriously at all. Or perhaps they were cultivating and did not hear the commotion outside. Meanwhile, Jiang Chen had returned to his cave and was planning to continue cultivating. This was how the world worked. Only by continuously cultivating and obtaining strength would one be able to possess everything. If you're like grass, like an ant, then everything you want is nothing but a bubble of fantasy. However, before he could start cultivating, an elder of the inner domain walked in. "Jiang Chen, you're the patriarch of the Chuanzun sect, right?" The dean of the inner domain asked. "I used to be, but now I've passed the position to Lu Qingchen. He's in charge of everything," Jiang Chen said. However, in the eyes of the others, Jiang Chen was still the patriarch. "The Martial Pavilion has given the order to promote the Chuanzun sect to a 7th-rate sect," the dean of the inner domain said with a worried expression. Jiang Chen could not help but smile after hearing this. The Chuanzun sect is slowly rising. It's only right for it to be promoted to a 7th-rate sect. But the dean of the inner domain frowned and said, "The Martial Pavilion has asked the patriarch to go to any branch of the Martial Pavilion personally to receive the promotion mission." Jiang Chen's face turned pale as soon as he heard that. The promotion of a sect required the approval and assessment of the Martial Pavilion. For example, even though the Martial Pavilion had agreed to promote the Chuanzun sect, they still had to pass the assessment and complete the mission. However, Jiang Chen was aware of his relationship with the Martial Pavilion. If he went to the Martial Pavilion, even if it was a branch, he would not be able to come out alive. The Martial Pavilion was clearly using the excuse of advancing in rank to trick Jiang Chen into going to the Martial Pavilion to die. "Sect Master Quan Zun is now Lu Qingchen," Jiang Chen asked. "Why do you want me to go?" The pavilion master of the Martial Pavilion personally called him out. The dean of the inner yard said, "That old thing is already seriously injured. Instead of recuperating, he still has the time to care about me?" Jiang Chen curled his lips and said, "Previously, Kuang Rinxiao, Yi Minji, and Bega Ho had fought Lin Lang, Wentian. In the end, both sides suffered great losses." Jiang Chen naturally knew that the injuries sustained from a battle of that level were not something that could be healed in a day or two. It might even take 1 or 2 years, or even more than 10 years to fully recover. However, the Martial Pavilion was still the Martial Pavilion. It was the strongest force on the godless continent. If they didn't listen to the Martial Pavilion, then the Martial Pavilion would have an excuse to send people to the Quadrant Divine Institutes to capture Jiang Chen. The Martial Pavilion said that I can go to any of the Martial Pavilion's branch halls personally? Jiang Chen asked. "Yes." The dean of the inner yard nodded and said, "Also, you can only go alone. Where is the Martial Pavilion closest to the Quadrant Divine Institutes?" Jiang Chen asked. "It's 10 miles away from here, Gufang City at the border with the Burning Sky Academy." The dean of the inner yard hurriedly shook his head and said, "It's better not to go. I'll tell the dean of the Heavenly Court and ask him to think of a way." In fact, if the Quadrant Divine Institutes really wanted to protect Jiang Chun, there would definitely be a way. However, that would make things difficult for the Quadrant Divine Institutes. Jiang Chun didn't like to owe favors. Moreover, it was just going to a branch hall. What could it do? No need. I can go by myself, Jiang Chun said with a smile. Don't worry, I'll be fine. After saying that, Jiang Chun immediately stood up and walked out of the cave. If he said he was going, then he was going. He definitely wouldn't delay. I'll send you to Gufang City. The dean of the inner yard chased after him, the worry in his eyes growing stronger. The higher-ups of the Quadrant Divine Institutes already knew that the Jiang family was also hunting Jiang Chun. If Jiang Chun left the Quadrant Divine Institutes, the Jiang family might be waiting outside to ambush him. If Jiang Chun didn't have an escort, he would have been killed by the Jiangs before he reached Gufang City. All right, Jiang Chun nodded. After that, under the escort of the dean of the inner yard, the journey was very peaceful. After half an incense stick's time, Jiang Chun entered Gufang City, while the dean of the inner yard stayed outside the city and waited for him. Gufang City had been established for a long time, dating back to 4,000 years ago. At that time, Jiang Chun hadn't even been born yet. It was said that the first city lord of Gufang City was a peerless woman, and her beauty was said to be the best in the godless continent. However, this woman never had a Tao companion in her life. In the eyes of the world, such a woman lived a lonely life, as if she was a lonely flower. Therefore, in the future, Jiang Chun named this city Gufang City. Jiang Chun didn't care about this. He had even seen the first city lord of Gufang City, the flower goddess of the divine world of the 9 heavens. Of course, Jiang Chun and the flower goddess didn't have much interaction. They only knew each other. City Lord Mansion martial competition for his spouse. The daughter of the 9th City Lord. It is said that she has the beauty of the first City Lord. Whoever marries her will be blessed. Along the way, all kinds of noises could be heard. The one he heard the most was that the daughter of the City Lord of Gufang City, Hualiani, was going to take part in the martial competition for a spouse. Below the Venerable Realm, above the King Realm, and above the age of 16. Boring, what era is it now? And there is still a martial competition for a spouse. Jiang Chun curled his lips. Even if they are married, it won't be true love. However, Jiang Chun was also curious. He wanted to see if the descendant of the flower goddess was as beautiful as the flower goddess. Thinking about this, Jiang Chun followed the crowd and walked towards the City Lord Mansion. However, not long after, Jiang Chun felt that he was being followed. Just a bunch of clowns. Jiang Chun thought to himself. He didn't care at all. This was because the people following him were just a few kings of darkness. Moreover, it seemed like they were from the martial pavilion of Gufang City. Of course, Jiang Chun wasn't afraid of the kings of darkness. He was slightly worried that the martial pavilion here might have experts surpassing the Venerable Realm. If that was the case, it would be troublesome this time. Let's go and take a look first, Jiang Chun thought. Since I'm already here, what else can I do? Not long after, when Jiang Chun arrived outside the City Lord Mansion, it was already crowded. In front of the gate of the City Lord Mansion, an arena had been built. It was covered with ribbons and red caltrops, and it looked very festive. In the arena, there was a red gold chair, and a woman in red with a veil was sitting on it. Is she Hualiani? Jiang Chun asked the person beside him. When the person heard this, he was stunned for a moment, and his expression was strange. This was because this person was one of the people following Jiang Chun secretly. Jiang Chun asked this question on purpose. Well, she is Hualiani. The person touched his nose, and after saying this, he turned around and left. Jiang Chun smiled as he watched the person leave. Then, his gaze fell on Hualiani, who was wearing a veil. Jiang Chun didn't care at first, but after looking at her, he was immediately tempted. Chapter 168. This? Spirit summoning? Jiang Chun's eyes widened, and he rubbed his eyes. He could not believe that Hualian was a spirit summoner. With her cultivation level, she should be called a spirit summoner king. Spirit summoners specialized in spiritual energy. However, the spiritual energy of spirit summoners was very special. It was similar to divine will and originated from the depths of one's soul. This spiritual energy could summon ancient spirits and even spirits that had died a long time ago. Once upon a time, there was such an interesting story. A spirit summoner whose cultivation base wasn't very high actually got lucky and managed to summon the remnant soul of an ancient deity. As a result, he defeated his opponent. In this world, the spirit summoner profession that could not be measured by cultivation level was the spirit summoner profession. Furthermore, the spirit summoner profession was very rare. In Jiang Chen's previous life, he had only seen a few. Should I take in a disciple? Jiang Chen thought to himself. Huo Yinyi's talent was very high, and she was a spirit summoner. If he could take her in and train her well, her future achievements would be extraordinary. Furthermore, ever since Jiang Chen's death, his friends and family in the continent of the Nine Clouds had either died or been injured. If Jiang Chen were to return to the continent of the Nine Clouds, he could not be alone. He had to be prepared. However, now that Huo Yin was in the martial arts competition, Jiang Chen could not go on the stage, right? If he were to win, wouldn't he have another wife? I'll take her in after the martial arts competition, Jiang Chen thought to himself. He stood quietly in the crowd, waiting for the martial arts competition to begin and end. After half an hour, Huo Yin, who had been sitting quietly in her seat, finally stood up. She wore a tight red robe that perfectly accentuated her figure. Her waist was like a water snake, her legs were long and slender, and her skin was so soft that it seemed like it would break at the slightest breeze. All of these attracted the men present. However, many people also knew that a person like Huo Yin was not someone that could be obtained by just anyone. I'll marry whoever can beat me. Just then, Huo Yin spoke. Her voice was cold and domineering. Her hair was draped behind her back, and under the veil, her red lips were slightly curled upwards with a hint of frivolity and arrogance. Jiang Chen could not help but think that Huo Yin was most likely a rose with thorns. No, it could also be a tyrant flower. Let me... At this moment, a young man walked into the arena with a long sword in his hand. He was at the upper level of the king realm. Let's start, Huo Yin said softly. After saying this, she sat back in her seat. This confused the young man. Was Huo Yin going to sit down and fight with him? Wang. Before he could think further, a ray of light appeared in front of Huo Yin. It was as if a door of nothingness was slowly opening. Following this, a man in battle armor and holding a long saber stepped out from the mystical light. In an instant, an intense, murderous aura filled the air. It was as if an experienced general was standing in front of everyone. This is upper level of the exalted realm. F***CK. What is this? Spirit summoning. Huo Yin is the spirit summoner king. At this moment, many people finally realized what was going on. Their exclamations resounded throughout the arena. When the young man with the long sword saw that Huo Yin had summoned a battle spirit at the upper level of the exalted realm, he smiled bitterly and said, I admit defeat. The rules of Huo Yin's competition for marriage had already been set. The participants had to be below the exalted realm and above the king realm. In other words, they could only be at the lower level of the king realm and at the upper level of the king realm. In this way, how could an ordinary cultivator at the upper level of the king realm fight against a battle spirit at the upper level of the exalted realm? Young miss, it's obvious that you don't want to get married. At this moment, an old servant walked up to Huo Yin and said with a wry smile, the city governor is anxious. If you don't get married, Father, are you worried that I won't be able to get married? Huo Yin raised her eyebrows and said angrily, with my looks, as long as I nod my head, people who want to marry me can line up from the east to the west of the city, from the Skyburn Academy to the 4 directions divine academies. But you don't want to get married. The old servant sighed. Young miss, you know that the Hua family is cursed. Enough, what curse? I never believe in those things, and I don't believe that there are gods in the world. Huo Yin said coldly. She waved her hand impatiently and closed her eyes. She had summoned a battle spirit and placed it in the arena. She didn't need to ask or worry about anything else. At this moment, The people around the arena were quite helpless. How could they fight against a battle spirit at the upper level of the exalted realm? You don't believe that there are gods in the world? At this moment, Jiangchen suddenly said. He looked at Hualiani in the arena and asked, "Why don't you believe it?" "Because I've never seen it, so I don't believe it," Hualiani replied. She seemed a little impatient and said, "If no one comes up, then the competition for marriage is over." What a coincidence! Suddenly, an extremely arrogant and haughty voice came from outside the crowd. Then, a group of guards from the martial pavilion rushed over and cleared a path for the crowd. Then, a young man walked toward the arena with an arrogant look on his face. "It's him?" When Jiangchen saw this young man, he couldn't help but be stunned. He was very surprised. This was because this person was Luo Tianchong, who had been crippled by him previously. Thinking about it, Lin Lang Wentian must have used a special method to restore Luo Tianchong's cultivation. After all, the martial pavilion had such a strong foundation. It wouldn't be difficult to restore Luo Tianchong's cultivation. Moreover, Luo Tianchong's strength seemed to have improved a lot. His cultivation had reached the middle level of the King realm. The sixth young master of the martial pavilion, Tiger Luo Tianchong. Why is he here? Many people exclaimed. They thought that there would be an accident in today's competition for marriage. Even Hualiani's eyes narrowed slightly. When she looked at Luo Tianchong, there was a trace of disgust in her eyes. She said coldly, "What are you doing here?" Hearing this, the people realized that Luo Tianchong and Hualiani knew each other. Thinking about it carefully, it was normal. Back then, Luo Tianchong went to a small place like solitary North City to see Nayland Mayer. This guy was not only arrogant, but also lustful. "Back then, I pursued you, but you rejected me," Luo Tianchong said mockingly. "Today, can you still reject me?" After saying that, Luo Tianchong stepped out and stood on the arena. Today was very simple. As long as he defeated Hualiani, he could marry her. This was much simpler than pursuing someone, and Luo Tianchong liked this kind of simple and direct things the most. "This if my future disciple is taken by this pig, Luo Tianchong." Jiangchen was upset. How could he let Luo Tianchong have his way? Chapter 169. Jiangchen already had a grudge against Luo Tianchong. If his disciple were to marry Luo Tianchong, his heart would explode. Although Hualiani was not Jiangchen's disciple yet, but in Jiangchen's heart, this disciple was definitely going to be his. As far as I know, the Hua family is cursed. If the female descendants of the Hua family do not marry before the age of 18, the curse will break out and they will die. Luo Tianchong said, "There are still 3 days before you turn 18. I don't believe in curses." Hualiani said coldly, "I'm not interested in you, but I'm interested in you." Luo Tianchong's eyes flashed with greed. He said, "I am the 6th young master of the martial pavilion. It is your fortune to marry me." "Bah! Bastard!" Hualiani spat. She did not give Luo Tianchong any face, especially the words bastard. Even the higher-ups of the martial pavilion headquarters did not dare to mention it. You should be disciplined." Luo Tianchong was furious. The words bastard were his reverse scale and could not be touched. Buzz! Luo Tianchong struck out with his palm. The palm print was like a fierce tiger, shining with golden light. A tiger's roar shook the heavens. The violent spiritual energy seemed to want to destroy the arena. You can't beat him. Jiangchen knew that Hualiani was no match for Luo Tianchong. Even if Hualiani summoned a fighting spirit at the upper level of the honorable realm, she could not beat Luo Tianchong. This was because after Luo Tianchong's cultivation recovered, not only did his strength increase greatly, but his golden tiger Taoist soul had also changed. As if it had reverted to its ancestor, the golden tiger seemed to have turned into a 9-headed golden tiger. Boom! At this moment, with a loud explosion, the tiger Taoist soul tore the fighting spirit apart in an instant. Then, a huge 9-headed golden tiger appeared behind Luo Tianchong. It is a blessing in disguise. My Taoist soul has changed. Luo Tianchong smiled and said, "How about it? From now on, you will not be taken advantage of if you follow me." "Who do you think you are? What a playboy," Hualini said coldly. Her words were not polite at all, and she did not have the gentleness of a girl. She was extremely domineering. As she saw her battle spirit being torn apart, her mind immediately went wild. A mystical glow appeared once again. The door that seemed to be hidden in the void was opened once again. However, this time, it was only a lower-level honorable realm battle spirit that walked out of the light. "Huh? What do you have to fight me? After this battle, I'll go to the city lord's mansion and personally propose marriage." Luo Tianchong laughed wildly, the greed in his eyes growing stronger. It seemed that he could already see the scene of him and Hualini in the bridal chamber. Hualini's face turned pale. Even a fighting spirit at the upper level of the venerable realm could not compete with Luo Tianchong. What could this fighting spirit at the lower level of the venerable realm do? Today, since it was a competition to find a spouse, and in front of so many people, if she were to give it to Luo Tianchong, it would be difficult for her to escape. Moreover, Hualini knew what kind of person her father was. He would probably want her to marry Luo Tianchong. Divine Consciousness Guard. 8 directions return to their positions. Stabilize the heavens. Experience the 6 paths of reincarnation. Hold on to a remnant soul. Explore the ancient tomb of the gods. Worship the blue sea. 9 nether yellow springs. Descend from the blue sky. Look at the ancient wheel. Destroy the tomb of the gods. Summon the light of the gods. At this moment, a terrifying mind power rushed into Hualini's mind. However, this mind power did not harm her. Instead, it taught her the illusory spirit skill that was exclusive to the spirit summoning profession. Who is it? Hualini was shocked. How terrifying was the cultivation of someone who could easily break through her mind power defense. However, Hualini was not in the mood to think too much about it. She could only try. She murmured, and her mind power exploded. What followed was a mystical glow like the sun. After the mystical glow, a bronze door appeared. As the door slowly opened, a ray of divine light burst out from the door. What is this? What kind of cultivation is this? At this moment, everyone exclaimed. Before they could see what Hualini had summoned, they already felt an extremely terrifying aura and power. Even Hualini herself was shocked. How could she not know what she was capable of? With her strength, she could only summon a battle spirit at the upper level of the honorable realm at most. However, although the battle spirit had not appeared yet, the aura it emitted was far beyond the upper level of the honorable realm. "I exist to fight for my master." With a long roar, a half-naked man walked out from the bronze door under everyone's gaze. He had silver hair, a beautiful face, and a slender body. He was surrounded by rays of silver light. Her talent is not bad. This is the first time she used the ancient illusory spirit skill, and she summoned a god. Jiang Chen nodded. He was even more determined to take Hualini as his disciple. After all, not every spirit summoning profession could summon a god when they used the ancient illusory spirit skill. Some people might only be able to summon an ordinary battle spirit. At this moment, Luo Tianchong's expression was grave. He stared at the silver-haired man. His palms were covered in cold sweat. He has surpassed the honorable realm. What is this? Why does he look so similar to a god I saw in an ancient book? Everyone was puzzled. Some people exclaimed, "The ancient god of silver, Bai Zhan, F*CK. He summoned this thing?" When someone revealed the identity of the silver-haired man, everyone was shocked. Even Luo Tianchong frowned. He knew he was no match for this spirit-summoning profession, so he walked out of the arena. Hualini heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, she looked around, trying to find the person who had taught her the ancient illusory spirit skill. However, Jiang Chen acted normal. He was standing there quietly, so Hualini didn't notice him. The contest for a spouse is over. Hualini was depressed that she could not find him. She shouted and left the arena. Hualini, right? Ha! A spirit-summoning king who can summon an ancient god. Luo Tiancheng's expression was gloomy. The desire in his eyes was getting stronger. He liked beautiful women, and he liked powerful beauties even more. They would be used by him. Send someone to the governor's mansion to propose a marriage. Luo Tiancheng said to the person behind him, "If the contest for a spouse is not successful, I will propose a marriage personally. I don't believe that a mere Gufang city would be able to reject my request with my identity and status." When the servant heard this, he immediately left to handle the matter. Luo Tiancheng also planned to leave for the martial pavilion. After all, he was here for revenge this time. What a coincidence. Suddenly, a light voice drifted over. Luo Tiancheng's body trembled when he heard the voice. Not only was his eyes filled with anger, but they were also filled with excitement. "You, Jiang Chun." At this moment, Luo Tiancheng turned around and looked at Jiang Chun. He said coldly, "You really dare to come?" "Why not?" Jiang Chun said mockingly. "I didn't expect the martial pavilion to have such a strong foundation. Your destroyed cultivation could be restored, and even your Taoist soul could mutate. Congratulations. It's all because of you." Luo Tiancheng's face darkened. His aura continued to surge as the nine-headed golden tiger Taoist soul appeared behind him. Chapter 170. The martial pavilion had asked Jiang Chun to go to any of the sub-halls to accept the Chuanzuan sex promotion mission. According to the martial pavilion speculation, Jiang Chun would most likely come to the martial pavilion sub-hall in Gufang City. Therefore, Luo Tiancheng, who had recovered his cultivation, was sent here. He was here for revenge. The current Luo Tiancheng was confident that he could fight against Jiang Chun, and he might even be able to defeat him. His power had soared, and his doctrine soul had also transformed. However, Jiang Chun was very calm. He even asked in a joking tone, "How many times can the martial arts pavilion help you recover your cultivation?" "You will die today," Luo Tiancheng said coldly. His cultivation being crippled was like a nightmare that had been bothering him. If he did not take revenge, it would become a demon in his heart. "You want me to die? Are you sure?" Jiang Chun picked his ears and said mockingly, "You said the same thing outside the Nine Halls tomb, but what happened in the end? It's different today." Luo Tiancheng said confidently, "You can't compete with me now." "Is that so?" Jiang Chun smiled and said, "The martial pavilion claims to be maintaining the order of the world. I'm here to accept the Chuanzuan sex promotion mission. If you attack me here in front of so many people, I'm afraid it's not appropriate, right? Aren't you afraid of the martial pavilion being gossiped about?" Luo Tiancheng was startled. He also understood that for a top force like the martial pavilion, sometimes what they wanted the most was not strength, but face. If he attacked Jiang Chun in front of so many people, people would definitely gossip about the martial pavilion in the future. Although Luo Tiancheng did not care, and the martial pavilion would not collapse because of a few words of gossip, it would still be a great loss to their reputation. "I can kill you anytime," Luo Tiancheng said disdainfully. "I'll give you more time to live. Should I thank you?" Jiang Chun said with a smile. "After I accept the mission, I'll talk to you about life." With that, Jiang Chun turned around and walked toward the martial pavilion sub-hall in Gufang City. Luo Tiancheng was right behind Jiang Chun. He was waiting for Jiang Chun to finish accepting the mission so that he could make his move. "Why are you following me like this?" Jiang Chun asked without looking back. "Are you in a hurry to have your cultivation destroyed by me again?" "Humph!" Luo Tiancheng coldly snorted and said, "Even if you enter the martial pavilion sub-palace, you still need to be alive to come out." There were too many people outside, so Luo Tiancheng couldn't make a move. However, after entering the martial pavilion, how could there be any outsiders? At that time, not only would Luo Tiancheng make his move, all the experts of the martial pavilion of Gufang City would make their move too. In Luo Tiancheng's eyes, Jiang Chun was walking towards death step by step. "How confident," Jiang Chun said softly. He seemed relaxed, but there was a trace of seriousness in his eyes. He knew better than anyone that the martial pavilion in Gufang City's martial pavilion branch palace was filled with experts. As for him, he was only at the lower level of the king realm. Once he entered the sub-palace, he would definitely be in for a bloody battle. Otherwise, he might not be able to walk out of the Martial Pavilion branch hall alive. However, despite knowing this, Jiang Chun would not back off. Besides, on his way here, the Inner Domain Dean had told him that the strongest experts in the Martial Pavilion branch palace in Gufang City were only at the upper level of the Martial Highness realm. Jiang Chun was not too worried about such a cultivation. Jiang Chun's only worry was if the Martial Pavilion's headquarters had already sent experts to the Martial Pavilion branch palace in Gufang City. If that was the case, the outcome of the battle would be undecided. Welcome, Sect Leader Quan Zun. Welcome, Sect Leader Quan Zun. Not long after, when Jiang Chun arrived at the entrance of the Martial Pavilion, the guards on both sides greeted him in a friendly and courteous manner. Jiang Chun let out a chuckle. He knew that these guards were only doing this for the sake of putting on a show for the outsiders. Trying to be a prostitute and yet trying to be chaste. Jiang Chun let out a laugh and waved his hand. You're being too courteous. After saying this, Jiang Chun took a step forward and entered the Martial Pavilion under the crowd's gaze. Bang! As soon as he stepped into the Martial Pavilion, the doors slammed shut. Following this, the auras of more than 10 upper-level Dao Masters exploded in the hall. Dark Supremacy, Sword Supremacy, Painting Supremacy, Martial Supremacy. A total of 13 Martial Highness Realm experts surrounded Jiang Chun in an instant. So impatient? Jiang Chun mocked. Why don't you give me the mission first? If I walk out of here alive without the mission, you won't be able to explain it to the outsiders, right? Take it. Among the 13 people, Sword Supremacy threw a silk scroll and said disdainfully, with the mission, I'll be buried with you. Go to the underworld and slowly complete the mission. The underworld? Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows and kept the silk scroll. Have you seen the underworld? Have you been to the underworld? Hearing Jiang Chun's words, the crowd was startled. Needless to say, there were only the underworld and the underworld in the world, but few people had actually been there and seen it. At least, among the people present, except for Jiang Chun. No one had been to the real underworld, and no one had seen the real underworld. I'll send you to have a look. Jiang Chun smiled, but his expression suddenly became serious. Bang! In the next moment, a horrifying wave exploded from Jiang Chun's body. The power of heaven and earth surged like a tsunami, and the brilliance of the sun and moon appeared in his eyes. Kill! Kill! At the same time, the 13 Martial Highness Realm experts roared angrily, and their spiritual power turned into attacks that covered the sky. In an instant, they drowned Jiang Chun. Heaven reversal! Jiang Chun shouted, and the brilliance of the sun and moon burst out from his eyes, as if the sun and moon appeared together. A horrifying mind power spread out like an invisible storm and shattered all the attacks that fell down. At the same time, a ray of moonlight shone down and covered a Dark Supremacy, leaving him nowhere to hide. A ray of sunlight shone down and shattered a sharp sword that was flying in the air. Then Jiang Chun exerted the distance, shrinking to an inch. His body moved like a ghost and kept moving horizontally in the hall. After 3 breaths, Jiang Chun suddenly appeared behind the Dark Supremacy. The underworld is very beautiful. Jiang Chun whispered in the Dark Supremacy's ear, and his fingertip pierced through the Dark Supremacy's head like a sharp blade, killing him. You're courting death. Be careful. This kid is quite something. Swoosh. Suddenly, Jiang Chun's figure disappeared again, as if he had turned into an illusion. Everyone looked around, but they couldn't sense Jiang Chun's aura at all. Did he run away? Where is he? Just as everyone was puzzled, the sound of a zither rang in the sky above their heads. Jiga begin. The sound of the zither was like thunder, vast and boundless. Lightning flashed, and the shadows of thousands of soldiers and horses appeared. Many people started to hallucinate, as if they were in an ancient battlefield, and they felt endless killing and tragic aura. Some people were even screaming and wailing. In the illusion, some people saw their bodies being pierced and their heads exploding. Some people were trampled by thousands of soldiers and horses, and their bones were crushed. It's an illusion. Wake up! A few Dharma venerables shouted, and their mind power exploded, trying to disperse the sound of the zither. However, a few rays of cold light fell, and like sharp needles, they killed those who entered the illusion. You want to kill me? I want to kill you too. Jiang Qin's figure appeared at the top of the main hall. In front of him, a zither formed by the power of heaven and earth floated up and down, and the song of Zhiga continued to play. Chapter 171. The sound of the guqin continued, and mentality flooded the entire Martial Pavilion main hall. Everyone at the scene was moved, and they were even more shocked and terrified. Even the art supremacies who mainly cultivated mentality began to feel strained and could not block Jiang Qin's mentality attack. Luo Tianchong was even worse. He had already fallen to the ground and fainted from Jiang Qin's guqin. Jiang Qin glanced at Luo Tianchong. With a flick of his finger, a cold light shot out and pierced Luo Tianchong's dantian. This was the second time that Luo Tianchong was crippled by Jiang Qin. Jiang Qin was also wondering what Linlang Wentian would think if he knew that Luo Tianchong was crippled by him again. Kid, don't be presumptuous. At this moment, an angry roar came from outside the Martial Pavilion. Then, a terrifying aura burst out as if a king had descended. Jiang Qin's pupil shrank when he heard that, and he thought to himself, oh no, this was an Earth Realm elite, facing an art supremacy. Even in upper art supremacy, Jiang Qin could easily suppress them. However, facing an Earth Realm elite, Jiang Qin knew very well that it was very troublesome. Kill. At this moment, Jiang Qin did not dare to hesitate. His mentality exploded, and like an invisible needle, it pierced through everyone present. When the Earth Realm elite rushed into the main hall, there was no one but corpses and the smell of blood on the ground. Of course, Luo Tianchong was still alive, but this guy was better off dead than alive. You dare to destroy the Martial Pavilion's branch in Gufang City? At this moment, the Earth Realm elite glared at Jiang Qin, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. So what if I killed them? Jiang Qin said coldly. Only the Martial Pavilion is allowed to attack, and I'm not allowed to retaliate. The Martial Pavilion is the sky of the godless continent. If the Martial Pavilion wants you dead, you can only accept it obediently, the person said coldly. Jiang Qin chuckled and did not say anything. Boom! In the next second, the man raised his hand, and a violent wave of spiritual energy engulfed Jiang Qin like a tornado. For a time, Jiang Qin trembled, his body cracked, and even his soul was severely injured. The power of an Earth Realm cultivator was not something he could contend against. However, Jiang Qin was still fearless. Since I dared to come here today, then I will be able to leave this place alive, Jiang Qin said in a deep voice. As his soul trembled, a burning green lamp appeared above his head. The Earth Realm cultivator immediately recognized Jiang Qin's Tao soul, and his eyes flashed with shock. This is the myriad change heavenly lamp? It was because he saw that the ever-changing heavenly lamp had been lit up. He could not believe that the myriad transformation heavenly lamp, which required a Lord-level Tao spirit to light up, could be lit up on the godless continent without a Lord-level Tao spirit. Without giving him time to think, Jiang Qin waved his hand and pulled out the wick of the myriad transformation heavenly lamp. This is the first time I'm using the myriad transformation heavenly lamp. You should feel honored, Jiang Qin said softly. The wick condensed and turned into a 7-foot-long green sword. In the next moment, Jiang Qin raised his arm. The long sword hummed, and the aura of the great Tao erupted. The sword light swallowed and spat out multicolored light, and the Tao sound was like a chant, as if the gods were chanting scriptures. Myriad change, heavenly slash. With a long roar, under the horrified gaze of the Earth Realm cultivator, the sword in Jiang Qin's hand finally slashed down. A green light, like a raging flame, seemed to be mixed with the great Tao, and there was even the shadow of a god floating in the green light. Under the sword, the entire martial pavilion collapsed, and even the Earth Realm cultivator died, turning into nothingness. Meanwhile, Jiang Qin's face was extremely pale. After executing the myriad change, heavenly slash, the force of heaven and earth in his body was completely depleted. After all, he had condensed the heavenly star, and the energy in his body would never be depleted. Too powerful, with my cultivation, I can only execute the myriad change, heavenly slash once. Jiang Qin smiled wryly. He glanced at the martial pavilion that had turned into ruins, and his figure instantly disappeared. He left quietly and walked out of the city. However, before he could leave Gufeng City, a sense of weakness overwhelmed his body. Jiang Qin's vision went dark. He couldn't hold on any longer. He fell from the air. Meanwhile, in Hualiani's room at the city lord's mansion in Gufeng City, Hualiani was wondering who had taught her the ancient illusionary spirit technique. She was also thinking that the person who taught her this martial skill must be very powerful, right? As she was thinking, a dull thud came from the roof. Following it, an unknown object smashed the roof and landed in front of her with dust. Hualiani was stunned and stood rooted to the ground. When she came to her senses, she saw that the unknown object was a handsome young man. This young man was Jiang Chun, who had fallen from the sky after fainting. Where did this come from? Hualiani was dumbfounded. This was the first time she had encountered such a thing since she was young. A young man had fallen from the sky and smashed her room. However, Hualiani did not think too much about it. She looked at the unconscious Jiang Chun and helped him to the bed. After all, she was not a bad person. When she saw an injured person, she would help him if she could. At least this way, she would not feel guilty in her heart. However, just as she was about to carry Jiang Chun to the bed, Jiang Chun woke up. With a special divine body and the heavenly star, Jiang Chen's recovery ability was already shocking. Previously, he had only been unconscious for a short period of time. At this moment, Jiang Chen's eyes widened. Looking at Hualiani, who was so close to him, he called out subconsciously, "Disciple, how are you?" Hualiani was also dumbfounded. How could someone who was unconscious suddenly wake up? Most importantly, she was hugging him. Although she was domineering like a man, she had never been in contact with other men, except when they fought. Even now, Hualiani, who was almost 18 years old, had never held hands with a man, let alone hugging a young man. Plop! Hualiani came back to her senses and blushed. She threw Jiang Chun to the ground and scolded, "Bastard! What happened?" Jiang Chun was stunned. He looked at the big hole in the roof and realized that he had fallen from the sky and landed on Hualiani. This was truly fate. "Disciple, hurry up and acknowledge me as your master." Jiang Chun didn't care at all. He stood up from the ground and looked serious. He said, "I can teach you. Are you stupid?" Hualiani said grumpily, "I don't blame you for breaking my boudoir. You can leave now." "Hey, don't," Jiang Chun said hurriedly. "I taught you the ancient illusion spirit spell." Hearing this, Hualiani immediately rolled her eyes. She did not believe him. In her mind, how could someone who could teach such a supreme martial skill as the ancient illusion spirit spell be a young man? Then he should be at least an old man or an uncle. Furthermore, his cultivation should be quite high, right? "Hurry up and leave before I lose my temper," Hualiani said coldly. "If you don't leave now, don't blame me for being rude." Chapter 172. Hualiani was very upset. Although she was domineering like a man, she was also very shy at this moment. Not only was her room smashed, but she was also hugging a young man. Most importantly, this young man was quite handsome, especially the smile on his face. It was naughty, with a trace of unruliness and arrogance. This type was Hualiani's favorite. It was just that the circumstances of their first meeting were a bit special. Divine will guard, 8 directions return. Hold the sky, see the 6 paths of reincarnation. hold the remnant spirit, explore the ancient tomb of the gods, worship the blue sea, 9 nether yellow springs, descend the azure sky, look at the ancient wheel, break the tomb of the gods, summon the light of the gods. At this moment, Jiang Chen didn't say much and just sang the ancient illusion spirit incantation. Hearing this, Hua Lianyi's expression changed. She stared at Jiang Chen in a daze, unable to believe it. After a dozen breaths, Jiang Chen finished singing the entire ancient illusion spirit incantation. He then said, "I saw that you were about to lose, so I only taught you part of it in a hurry. Now, I'm singing the complete ancient illusion spirit incantation." "You really are?" Hua Lianyi was shocked, but she still couldn't believe that the person who taught her the ancient illusion spirit incantation was younger than her. "Hurry up, master." Jiang Chen smiled. "Many people want to be my disciple, but I rejected them all. Now that I've taken the initiative to accept you, you should feel honored." Hearing this, Hua Lianyi was stunned again. How could a person who was younger than her act so old-fashioned? Accept a disciple? "Little brother, please, your cultivation is lower than mine. Are you also a spirit summoner?" Hua Lianyi didn't agree, but asked curiously. "You can say so." Jiang Chen nodded. Proficient in all professions, Jiang Chen felt that he was also a spirit summoner. "Then summon a battle spirit and see." Hua Lianyi said, "What can you summon?" "Anything." Jiang Chen smiled. "As long as my cultivation is high enough, I can even summon the former divine king." Speaking to hear, Jiang Chen chuckled and said, "How about we make a bet? I will summon together with you. If the battle spirit I summon is stronger than yours, you will become my apprentice. How about it?" Hearing this, Hua Lianyi agreed without hesitation. Although a part of summoning a battle spirit depended on luck, but it also had a lot to do with the level of cultivation. Hua Lianyi's cultivation was much higher than Jiang Chen's. She believed that the battle spirit she summoned would definitely be stronger than the one Jiang Chen summoned. Then, Hua Lianyi attacked. Her spiritual energy exploded as she used the ancient illusion spirit spell. After a few breaths of time, a mysterious light appeared, and the bronze gate appeared. Him again. At this moment, Hua Lianyi was very excited because she had summoned Bai Zhan again. "Interesting." Jiang Chen nodded and said, "Since you can summon the ancient war god Bai Zhan more than once, it means that you are very talented and qualified to be my apprentice. Don't waste your time. It's your turn." Hua Lianyi said snappily, "Hurry up." "Okay." Jiang Chen smiled. Then, Jiang Chen did not do anything. After his spiritual energy exploded, he snapped his fingers casually. Buzz! Immediately, the space vibrated. Before a gate appeared, a tall figure suddenly appeared beside Jiang Chen. A strong aura filled the air, as if he was a king. The man was tall and strong. He was wearing bright red armor and holding a sky halberd. When he opened and closed his eyes, there seemed to be a blood river flowing in the depths of his eyes. "Are you satisfied now?" Jiang Chen smiled and said, "Do you know this man?" Hua Lianyi was stunned. She did not know who Jiang Chen had summoned, but she knew that Jiang Chen's fighting spirit had reached the peak of the honorable realm. Moreover, the aura it exuded was even stronger than Bai Zhan's. "My king." At this moment, Bai Zhan suddenly bowed to Jiang Chen's fighting spirit with a respectful expression. Although the fighting spirit had died when it was summoned, it still had a trace of remnant soul and a wisp of memory of its previous life. "My king?" Hua Lianyi was stunned and asked, "The king of the ancient war god Bai Zhan. He is Xuejun?" "Yes." Jiang Chen nodded and said, "Xuejun, the king of the ancient era, had once united the godless continent. After he ascended to the holy world of the 9 heavens, he was even more powerful and had once ruled the holy world of the 9 heavens. This person could be said to be a legendary figure in history. Accept your loss and be my disciple." Jiang Chen looked at Hua Lianyi with a smile and said, "You won't lose out. But you are too young." Hua Lianyi frowned and then muttered, "If you are my boyfriend, I can accept it. A few years difference is not a problem. But to be my master is a bit inappropriate." "Boyfriend? Don't even think about it." Jiangchen squinted and said, "What kind of sweet dream are you having?" Ah? Hualini was confused again. She was just making an example. She did not really want Jiangchen to be her boyfriend. Besides, would he lose out if he became her boyfriend? Who was the one having a sweet dream? I will discuss it with my father. Hualini said, "Becoming a disciple is a big deal. If my father does not agree, there is nothing I can do." When Jiangchen heard this, he was immediately dissatisfied. This little girl was obviously going to go back on her word. When the time came, Hualini would collude with her father and refuse to be Jiangchen's disciple. Then Jiangchen would have nothing to play with. Although a forcibly picked melon is not sweet, it is still necessary to twist it when it is necessary, Jiangchen muttered. His eyes flashed, and he suddenly moved horizontally. Before Hualini could react, Jiangchen was very close to her. A master and disciple contract rune was imprinted between Hualini's eyebrows. Buzz! In the air, a buzzing sound was heard. The contract was forcibly established. At this moment, Hualini was dumbfounded again. The young man who descended from the sky was the one who taught her the ancient illusion spirit skill. Now, she was forced to establish a master and disciple contract. Why did all this feel so surreal and unreal? Okay, if you have any questions about cultivation, come to the Square Divine Courtyard to find me. Jiangchen waved his hand and said, "Goodbye, my third disciple." You. Hualini's eyes widened. Her temper immediately flared up. After a furious roar, Hualini ordered Baijan, "Take him down." When Baijan heard this, he stood where he was and did not move at all. This was because the blood god Zhanling that Jiangchen had summoned had not disappeared. Baijan did not dare to make a move when his queen was still there. "Hey, you have established a master and disciple contract. How dare you make a move on me? Aren't you afraid of the backlash?" Jiangchen said snappily. "What's there to be afraid of?" Hualini's face darkened. A trace of sadness flashed across her eyes. She said, "The female descendants of the Hua family were born with a curse. If they don't marry before the age of 18, they will die. Then you can just get married." Jiangchen said, "If you want to get married, isn't it easy? Do you think you could just find a random person to marry?" Hualini rolled her eyes and said with sadness, "Maybe it's better to die." Chapter 173. The female descendants of the Hua family were cursed at birth. Even though Hualini did not believe it, this had happened to the female descendants of the Hua family. If they were not married by the time they reached 18 years old, they would die suddenly. Jiangchen was confused. What was with this curse? Could it be that the god of flowers planted the curse herself? But that was impossible. Why would the god of flowers do this to her descendants? When did the curse start? Jiangchen asked. "I don't know." Hualini shook her head. "No one can lift this curse." Jiangchen couldn't help but frown when he heard that. He thought to himself that if his disciples were dead, how could he keep them? Just get married. Jiangchen thought about it and said, "Get married first and save your life." However, Hualini's face turned red. She spat and said, "Marry what? I still have to consummate my marriage after I get married. Only then can the curse be lifted." Hearing this, Jiangchen felt awkward. Now that he thought about it, Hualini really could not get married so easily. If she met a good man, she would be okay. Even if she did not have feelings for him, she could slowly cultivate him. Hualini's life would be over if she found a scumbag man. "You forced me to be your disciple. Now you are my master." Hualini blinked and said, "As a master, shouldn't you care about your disciple? Shouldn't you think of a way?" "Let me think about it," Jiangchen whispered. He had a headache about the power of the curse. Even though Jiangchen was well-versed in all professions and knew many secrets in the world. But the curse of the Hua family had been around for a long time. He did not know where it started. If he could not find the source of the curse, what could Jiangchen use to lift Hualini's curse? "In 3 days, you will be 18 years old?" Jiangchen asked. "Yes." Hualini nodded. Her eyes flashed with sadness. She was very strong. In the eyes of others, she was a female overlord. However, In the face of this curse and death, Hua Liani felt helpless and unwilling. Could it be that she really had to casually find someone to marry in order to survive? "Let me see your father," Jiang Chen said. Maybe he knows something. Hua Liani had no choice but to bring Jiang Chen to the main hall of the city lord's mansion to find her father, Hua Tianyi. "Father, he is—" Hua Liani opened her mouth and glanced at the calm Jiang Chen. She looked embarrassed and said, "My master." "Hmm? Master? When did you worship him?" A cold light flashed in Hua Tianyi's eyes as he stared at Jiang Chen. He shook his head and said, "With such a low cultivation, how can he be your master? Hurry up and leave." Hua Tianyi waved his hand and ordered them to leave. Jiang Chen didn't care. After all, Hua Tianyi didn't know who Jiang Chen was, and he didn't know what Jiang Chen was capable of. If it were anyone else, they would have the same attitude as Hua Tianyi. "I am here to help Hua Liani get rid of the curse." Jiang Chen spoke in a soft voice, while wearing a calm expression. He said, "Can you tell me what the curse of the Hua family's female descendants is all about?" When Hua Tianyi heard what Su Mo had said, he harumphed and looked at Su Mo with disdain. Everyone in Gufang City knew about the curse on the Hua family. Even the headquarters of the Martial Pavilion and Zhongzhou dynasty knew about it. This was because the ancestors of the Hua family had been looking for a way to get rid of the curse. They had been to the Martial Pavilion and Zhongzhou dynasty. They had even visited various sects and families to find a way to get rid of the curse. However, even those who had survived the 5 decay of the heavenly being could do nothing about the curse on the Hua family. Now, a young man with such a low cultivation said that he wanted to get rid of the curse on the Hua family. Hua Tianyi didn't believe him. In Hua Tianyi's eyes, Jiang Chen was here to get close to Hua Liani and even to build a relationship with her. Hua Liani has 3 days left. Unless she marries someone and consummates her marriage, she will have to find a way to get rid of the curse within these 3 days. Otherwise, she will die. Jiang Chen said, as her father, "You don't want to see her die, right?" "Of course not." Hua Tianyi said, "Not long ago, the 6th young master of the Martial Pavilion, Luo Tianchong, sent someone to ask for her hand in marriage. I believe that Luo Tianchong will be here soon. When the time comes, we will arrange a marriage between Gufang City and the Martial Pavilion. This will not only strengthen Gufang City, but also give Hua Liani a good husband." Hua Tianyi said. When Jiang Chen heard what Hua Tianyi said, his expression became strange. "Luo Tianchong?" Jiang Chen muttered. He had crippled Luo Tianchong's cultivation again. He was probably still unconscious in the ruins of the Martial Pavilion. He did not know if Linlang Wentian would help Luo Tianchong recover his cultivation this time. At the same time, Jiang Chen knew that Hua Tianyi was a snobbish person. If he did not give him enough benefits, he would not be able to deal with him today. However, Jiang Chen was helping the Hua family. If Jiang Chen wanted to help the Hua family and also give them benefits, he couldn't do it. "Since you don't want to tell me, I will take my leave," Jiang Chen said softly. He then looked at Hua Liani and said, "If you stay, you will die. If you come with me, you may have a chance to live. You make your choice." Having said that, Jiang Chen turned around and walked out of the main hall. Hua Liani stood there, frowning. She was thinking. She glanced at Hua Tianyi. She knew her father's temper and could not help but sigh. Then, Hua Liani turned around and left without saying a word. When Hua Tianyi saw that, anger flashed in his eyes. He loved Hua Liani, but he did not want to see his daughter run away with a stranger. Moreover, he wanted to use Hua Liani to marry into the Martial Pavilion and increase the strength of Gufang City. "Stop right there!" Hua Tianyi shouted angrily. "Do you still see me as your father?" "Father, when have you ever seen me as your daughter?" Hua Liani paused and said, "I am just a tool for you to marry into the Martial Pavilion." "You! How dare you?" Hua Tianyi was furious. It seemed that Hua Liani had hit the nail on the head. He was embarrassed and angry. As soon as he finished speaking, he stepped forward. Like a bolt of lightning, he appeared in front of Hua Liani in the blink of an eye. At the same time, he threw his palm across Jiang Chen. A palm print dashed toward Jiang Chen's back. How dare you seduce my daughter? You deserve to die. As Hua Tianyi shouted, the palm print exploded and covered Jiang Chun like golden needles. Jiang Chun had sensed Hua Tianyi's attack. As soon as Hua Tianyi attacked, the power of black and yellow in his body turned into a golden shield to protect him. Boom! Boom! Along with a few explosions, the sharp needles formed by the palm prints exploded and disappeared into nothingness. At the same time, Jiang Chun turned around and stared coldly at Hua Tianyi. He said, "Before you attack me, you should think about the consequences." Chapter 174. Hua Tianyi was surprised that Jiang Chun had managed to parry his attack with his low level of cultivation. However, so what? The gap between their cultivation levels was like a chasm that could not be crossed. Hua Tianyi thought that Jiang Chun must have used some kind of treasure to block his attack. Little bastard, do you think you can do anything in the city governor's mansions? Hua Tianyi shouted angrily as he struck out with his palm again. This time, a light flashed in Jiang Chun's eyes. A beam of moonlight, like the radiance of a knife, shot out of his eyes. Bang! There was a loud explosion and the palm print was shattered. The ray of moonlight was unstoppable and it arrived in front of Hua Tianyi in an instant. "No!" Hua Tianyi exclaimed. She could not believe that Jiang Chun, who was only a lower-level king realm martial artist, was able to suppress her father. Hua Tianyi's cultivation level was at the upper level of the honorable realm. "I will let you go today for the sake of my disciple," Jiang Chun said coldly. At the last moment, he removed the ray of moonlight. Then he turned around and walked out of the mansion. However, Hua Tianyi wouldn't give up. He shouted angrily. More than 30 guards, masters, and guests of the mansion of the Lord showed up and surrounded Jiang Chun. The weakest among them was at the middle level of the king realm, and the strongest one was at the same level as Hua Tianyi. "Don't provoke me," Jiang Chun said softly. Then a ray of cold light flashed in his eyes, and he said, "The consequences will be severe. Take him down." Hua Tianyi ignored Jiang Chun and ordered the guards to take action. Heh. The corners of Jiang Chun's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a faint smile. His energy soared all of a sudden. Black and white light flashed on his body, and 2 swords appeared in his hands. The black and white light flashed, and the swords whizzed out like a gust of wind. In just a few breaths' time, the guards had fallen to the ground. At that moment, Hua Tianyi realized that the young man in front of him was more powerful than he had imagined. "If you attack again, this will be your burial ground," Jiang Chun said coldly. If it wasn't for Hua Tianyi, Jiang Chun wouldn't have let Hua Tianyi go. "Let's go." Hua Tianyi's eyes were red. She was extremely disappointed with her father. After much difficulty, he finally found a chance to survive. Perhaps he could find a way to resolve the curse. In the end, Hua Tianyi wanted to kill Jiang Chun. If Jiang Chun was really killed, then the last hope of dispelling the curse would be gone. By then, what else could Hua Tianyi do but wait for her death? She was very strong-willed and stubborn. It was impossible for her to casually find someone to marry. "If you walk out of this door today, don't ever come back. I don't have a daughter like you." Hua Tianyi pulled a long face. When he looked towards Jiang Chun, his eyes were full of hatred and anger. Hua Tianyi didn't say a word when she heard what Hua Tianyi had said. A tear fell from her eye, and she left with Jiang Chun. Along the way, Jiang Chun looked at Hua Tianyi. After a while, he asked, "You don't regret it? What's the use of regretting it?" Hua Tianyi smiled bitterly. "I'm about to die. What's there to regret? Moreover, in his eyes, I'm just a tool for his marriage. I don't know how to comfort you." Jiang Chun shook his head. "As time passes, the wound in your heart will slowly heal." Hua Tianyi nodded. Then, the two of them left Gufang City and met up with the dean of the inner yard. "You're a disciple of the Sifang Divine Institute?" Hua Tianyi asked in surprise. Gufang City was very close to the Sifang Divine Institute. The dean of the inner yard was a famous elite in the area. He had been to the city governor's mansion before. Now, the dean of the inner yard was personally waiting for Jiang Chun. This made Hua Tianyi realize that this so-called master seemed to be something. "Are you okay?" The dean of the inner yard glanced at Hua Liani. Then his gaze fell on Jiang Chun. With his cultivation, he had already noticed what had happened in the Martial Pavilion in Gufang City. So much so that when Jiang Chun entered the Martial Pavilion, he couldn't help but want to attack him several times. "I'm fine." Jiang Chun smiled. He looked relaxed. "What can happen to me? What can that group of trash do to me? It's good that you're fine." The dean of the inner yard heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Did you get the promotion mission?" "I got it." Jiang Chun nodded. "Now, I've been to the Martial Pavilion's branch palace and got the promotion mission. The Martial Pavilion's headquarters has no reason to find trouble with me for the time being." Despite that, Jiang Chun knew that the Martial Pavilion would not let him go. It must be known that this time, Jiang Chun had killed all of Gufang City's martial arts pavilion's experts. Even the Earth Realm cultivator from the Martial Pavilion's headquarters had been slashed into nothingness by the 1,000 transformations heavenly slash. This time, the Martial Pavilion had suffered a great loss. However, the Martial Pavilion would not tell anyone about this to save their face. They could only swallow their anger for now. However, it wouldn't be long before the Martial Pavilion came knocking on his door again. How would Jiang Chun deal with it next time? Let's return to the Sifang Divine Courtyard first. The dean of the inner yard said. He then led Jiang Chun and Hua Liani into the sky. Half the time it took for an incense to burn, the three of them returned to the inner yard. The dean then left. Jiang Chun led Hua Liani into his cave. "Master, you're back." Bai Fengyu, who was cultivating in the cave, shouted excitedly when he saw Jiang Chun return. However, when he saw Hua Liani behind Jiang Chun, a trace of resentment flashed across his eyes. "Master, do you have to bring a woman back every time you go out?" Bai Fengyu complained. "Previously, you went to solitary North City and brought back Nayland Mayor. This time, you went to Gufang City and brought back another one." Jiang Chun was slightly embarrassed when he heard this. He thought to himself, what's the situation in this life? The three disciples were all female. Moreover, they were all stunning beauties. Let me introduce her to you." Jiang Chun coughed and said, "Her name is Hua Liani. She will be your third junior sister from now on." Bai Fengyu rolled his eyes. Looking at Hua Liani's appearance, which was not inferior to his, he thought to himself, the competition is so great. With Nayland Mayor, Bai Fengyu already felt pressured. Now there's another one? Are you kidding me? Can't you take in a male disciple? "I was forcefully taken in by you," Hua Liani said snappily. "I didn't do it willingly." "You didn't do it willingly?" Bai Fengyu was stunned. How many people wanted to be Jiang Chun's disciple, but couldn't? Now, looking at Hua Liani's expression, she seemed a little unhappy. "You really don't know how lucky you are." Bai Fengyu muttered. I don't want this disciple anymore." "Nonsense." Jiang Chun stared at Bai Fengyu and said, "Hurry up and cultivate. I still have things to do." After saying that, Jiang Chun let Hua Liani stay in the cave while he turned and walked out. Chapter 175. He didn't know what the curse on Hua Liani was. At least, with Jiang Chun's knowledge, he couldn't help her get rid of it. On the way here, Jiang Chun secretly checked Hua Liani's situation, but he didn't find the power of the curse in her body at all. It wasn't that Hua Liani was lying to Jiang Chun, but the power of the curse was too profound. Jiang Chun needed to go to the Sutra Depository of the Sifang Divine Institute to find clues about the curse. "Jiang Chun, where have you been?" As soon as he walked out of the cave, Nian Chang'e came over with a smile. She picked her nose and said, "After coming to the Sifang Divine Institute, it's really boring. Don't bother me. I have a headache," Jiang Chun said angrily. "What's wrong?" Nian Chang'e asked curiously. "What's giving you a headache?" "I just took in a disciple, but she was cursed. I don't know how to get rid of it." Jiang Chun sighed and said, "If I can't get rid of it, she will die in 3 days. Of course, if she gets married and consummates with someone, the curse can also be broken. But she won't agree." "Oh, is that so?" Nian Chang'e's eyes suddenly flashed and she said, "Why don't you let me go?" "What?" Jiang Chun was stunned. Looking at Nian Chang'e, He felt that there was a hidden meaning in her words. Hearing this, Nianchanga's face suddenly turned red, and she muttered weakly, "I'll consummate with her. I'll suffer a little and treat it as a good thing." Jiang Chun was speechless. He glared at Nianchanga and turned to leave. This guy was getting more and more shameless. Jiang Chun couldn't figure out what kind of person Nianchanga was. Sometimes she was too silly. Sometimes she was so cheap that she made people want to cry. Sometimes she was as pure as a blank piece of paper. In short, Jiang Chun really didn't have a definite idea about Nianchanga. At this moment, after Jiang Chun left, Nianchanga rolled her eyes and entered Jiang Chen's cave residence. He came in, glanced at Hualiani, and walked out with a smile. Half a day later, Jiang Chen returned. He went to the scripture pavilion and flipped through many ancient books, but he still couldn't find anything about the Hua family's curse. "You're back? Have you found a way?" Nianchanga sat on the mountain with her feet hanging on the edge of the cliff, looking very comfortable. "There's no other way." Jiang Chen sighed. "Could it be that I can't even protect my own disciple?" Hearing this, Nianchanga smiled mysteriously and took out a pill. Although this pill may not be able to remove her curse, but it can let her live for a few more days. Live a few more days, and you might be able to find a way. Jiang Chen naturally trusted Nianchanga. Although this guy was sometimes very stupid and sometimes very cheap, he didn't have any bad intentions. Taking the elixir, Jiang Chen didn't ask any questions, nor did he give it any thought. He just went back to his abode. "Eat it. This pill can relieve the curse in your body." Jiang Chun was very direct and handed the pill to Hualiani. Hualiani was about to die, so she didn't think much. After eating the pill, she continued to cultivate. "Jiang Chun, Bai Fingyu's grandfather is here. Ask her to come out." After a dozen breaths, Nianchanga's voice came from outside the cave residence. "I'll be back soon. Hurry up and cultivate," Jiang Chen said, and removed the array formation around Bai Fengyu, letting her out. Ever since Bai Fengyu was educated by Jiang Chen, she had been cultivating her mental strength in the array formation these few days. After cultivating day and night, Bai Fengyu was about to explode. At this moment, she was finally able to go out, so she wanted to stay outside for a while. However, when Bai Fengyu walked out of the cave residence, she met Nianchanga, who was guarding outside. "Where's my grandfather?" Bai Fengyu asked. "I lied to him. I just wanted to let you rest for a while." Nianchanga smiled, but his eyes kept looking at Jiang Chen's cave residence. In the depths of his eyes, there was a trace of playfulness. After saying that, Nianchanga waved his hand, and a barrier appeared, sealing Jiang Chen's cave residence. Then, he took out an incense burner and lit it up. Wisps of pink smoke floated into the cave residence. Bai Fengyu asked curiously, "What are you doing?" "Your master is cultivating nonstop. I'm burning some calming incense for him to let him rest." Nianchanga said seriously. "Who asked him to be my friend?" "I'm thinking for him." Bai Fengyu was touched and muttered, "Master cultivates when he has nothing to do. He should rest." At the same time, in the cave residence, Jiang Chen was cultivating, but suddenly he felt a strand of something fall on his body. When he opened his eyes and saw Hualiani with a flushed face and watery eyes, Jiang Chen's brain was about to explode. "Nianchanga!" Jiang Chen roared and immediately reacted. The elixir that Nianchanga gave him was not to delay the curse. It was obviously an aphrodisiac. It was an aphrodisiac elixir. "Wait a moment. I'll dissolve it for you," Jiang Chen said hurriedly, but he realized that Hualiani had already lost consciousness. Her body was hot, and her eyes were watery. She kept pulling at her clothes and leaned on Jiang Chen. Her tender hands were like willow catkins, caressing Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen's heart was burning, but he knew that he could not bully Hualiani at this time. However, just as Jiang Chen was about to use the power of heaven and earth to dissolve the aphrodisiac poison in Hualiani's body, his face suddenly changed. Unknowingly, there was an additional strand of pink energy in his body. This energy was very gentle, but it stimulated his desire. Furthermore, even his heavenly star had been sealed. "Nianchanga, just you wait," Jiang Chen roared, knowing that he had been tricked by Nien Changa. First, she gave him an aphrodisiac. Then she burned aphrodisiac incense outside. Jiang Chen naturally did not expect Nien Changa to do this to him. Now he had fallen in her trap. Damn it. I've been a virgin for 2 lifetimes. Jiang Chen roared in his heart. However, after being poisoned by the aphrodisiac poison in his body also broke out. Although he persevered, Jiang Chen lost consciousness not long after. A pink aura filled the cave residence. His body was intertwined with the white clouds, and it was soft and gentle. There seemed to be thunder, and there was also a delicate fragrance like a spring breeze. The entire room was filled with spring. After a long time, when the aphrodisiac poison in their bodies had dissipated, Jiang Chen looked at the unconscious Hualiani in his arms. He was really cursing in his heart. Damn it, my first time is gone just like that. Jiang Chen was still in a daze. Although it felt good, but it was not appropriate, right? This was his disciple. Moreover, he had not dissolved the curse for Hualiani, and he had already done it with her. Although both of them were under the aphrodisiac poison, but Jiang Chen was not willing to do it. It's all right now. Your curse has been removed. Jiang Chen smiled bitterly. Chapter 176. Inside the cave, it had just experienced a spring breeze and drizzle, and it was filled with a fragrant smell. Outside the cave, Nien Changa's face was full of anxiety, and his heart was even weaker. Why is it not done yet? Nien Changa thought to himself. Isn't it too long? Will it come out? Could it be that the dosage was too much? Nien Changa. At this moment, the door of the cave was opened, and the enchantment outside was shattered by Jiang Chen's punch. When Nien Changa saw Jiang Chen's gloomy face, he turned around and ran away in fear. However, how could he outrun Jiang Chen? Not long after, at the edge of the cliff, Jiang Chen pressed Nien Changa to the ground, and his sandbag-sized fists beat him fiercely. You dare to mess with me? Jiang Chen's face was dark, and he even had the heart to kill Nien Changa. You took advantage of me, and you still hit me? Nien Changa said in a muffled voice. Tell me, did you take advantage of me? Jiang Chen didn't know what to say when he heard that. Yes, he was a man. Moreover, Hualiani's appearance was already devastatingly beautiful. This, no matter how he looked at it, Jiang Chen, was not at a disadvantage. I didn't do it willingly. She is also not voluntary. Jiang Chen said with a dark face, and walked on Nien Changa's back. Oh, you're really shameless. Nien Changa was beaten until his head was full of bumps, but he still did not beg for mercy. He looked at Jiang Chen playfully, and even asked, Is it comfortable? Jiang Chen was stunned for a moment, and then raised his sandbag-sized fists and greeted him again, until a dozen breaths later, Nien Changa could not resist and begged for mercy, and said, Stop hitting. If you continue, I'll really die. What's more, didn't you save her? Jiang Chen also knew that after the consummation, Hualiani's curse was gone. However, she was a girl. This was not appropriate, right? Given Hualiani's stubbornness, when she woke up and found out about this, would he commit suicide? What are you guys talking about? By phone you walked over curiously. He slept with Hualiani. Nien Changa said. She even blinked and asked Bai Fengyu, Do you want to? By phone you stared blankly for a moment and was confused for a long time. She was a little confused. What's wrong? So he had been doing this in the cave for half a day? She remembered that she had been with Jiang Chen for so long, but she hadn't even kissed him. Hualiani had just arrived, and she had already become Jiang Chen's woman? At this moment, Bai Fengyu was enraged. She glared at Jiang Chen with her beautiful eyes and shouted, Is it that I, Bai Fengyu, am not beautiful enough? Or is it that Jiang Chen's standards are too high? Jiang Chen was also dumbfounded. Is this how the plot develops? I treat you as my disciple, but you want to sleep with me? Are you kidding me? Oh, Master, you're starting to eat meat. Right at this moment, Nailan Mame had coincidentally arrived and heard the conversation between the few of them. She looked at Jiang Chun with a smile. She ran her finger across her red lips and said in a charming manner, "Why don't I give my first time to you too?" Thinking about the love between a master and a disciple. How romantic. I'm so envious. Jiang Chen's face turned red. He glared at Nian Changa and then ran away. He really couldn't understand what his two disciples were thinking about. Could it be that they really wanted to sleep with him? I taught you cultivation techniques and martial arts and guided you in your cultivation. But you want to sleep with me? Jiang Chun was depressed. He came to the lake at the back of the mountain in the inner court alone. He sat there and became more speechless the more he thought about it. How many years had it been? In his previous life and this life, he had kept his chastity. In the end, he had lost his chastity? I'm innocent. I can't accept this. My life is bitter. Finally, Jiangchen couldn't take it anymore. He roared by the lake, feeling wronged. Of course, if others knew that he had slept with a beauty and was complaining about it, he would probably be beaten to death, right? What are you yelling about? Get lost. Suddenly, an angry roar came from under the lake. Then, the lake water surged, and a young man flew out from the bottom of the lake. He had been cultivating under the lake, but he was disturbed by Jiang Chen's roars. He was already angry. When he saw that the person who disturbed his cultivation was Jiang Chun, the anger in his eyes became more intense. It's you, right? The guy who caused the inner court to be in an uproar? The young man frowned and said, "What do you look like?" "Huh?" Jiang Chen's eyes widened. He pointed at himself and said, "I'm fancy? How am I showy? What can I do if others want to spread rumors about me?" "Humph! You've caused a storm in the inner court, but you're only at the lower level of the king realm. You really don't know how to keep a low profile." The young man said in a deep voice, "Aren't you afraid of being dealt with by others for being so arrogant and high profile?" Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed when he heard that, and his expression gradually turned cold. He could tell that the young man in front of him was looking for trouble with him. "It seems that there are many people in the inner court who don't like me," Jiang Chun thought to himself, but he didn't understand. No matter how much he disliked him, he couldn't be looking for trouble like this, right? There had to be an excuse or reason, right? "I heard that you crippled Jiang Jiuqing a few days ago." At this moment, the young man's eyes drooped slightly, as if he didn't care. "Yes, what's wrong?" Jiangchen nodded, but he knew that this kid was looking for an excuse. "Then I'll cripple you today." A cold light suddenly burst out from the young man's eyes, and he said, "Jiang Jiuqing is my sworn brother." Oh, no wonder. At this moment, Jiang Chun was relieved. Previously, he found it strange that he would look for trouble with anyone he met. It turned out that it had something to do with Jiang Jiuqing. However, since he wanted to look for trouble, couldn't he be more straightforward? Did he have to find a reason and an excuse? Why? Did he want to show off his noble temperament? Or did he have to be reasonable? I hate people like you the most. If you want to fight, just fight. Stop talking nonsense. Jiang Chen curled his lips and said, "Let's go. I'll see you at the training hall." "Are you sure?" Li Muge was stunned for a moment. "You don't know who I am? Are you sure you want to fight with me?" How could Jiang Chen know who Li Muge was? In his eyes, as long as he didn't surpass the venerable realm, he could fight. If he surpassed the venerable realm, he would have to use the power of the ever-changing heavenly lamp. "I'm a disciple of the inner court, ranked 9th. I'm Li Muge," Li Muge said seriously, and a trace of arrogance flashed in his eyes. "It doesn't matter if you're ranked 9th or 6th. Let's fight." Jiang Chen waved his hand and muttered, "The 9th place is so arrogant. Wouldn't the 1st place soar into the sky?" With that, Jiang Chen rose into the air and flew towards the training hall. Li Muge's eyes shone with a cold light as he followed. A few breaths later, in the training hall, Jiang Chen and Li Muge stood opposite each other in the air. Chapter 177. There were many people on the dojo to begin with. They were either practicing martial skills, sparring, or discussing matters of cultivation. At this moment, when the crowd saw Jiang Chun and Li Muge standing opposite each other, they all gathered around. "Isn't that Jiang Chen? Is he going to fight Li Muge?" Everyone was astonished, and even more so, curious. Currently, Jiang Qin's reputation in the inner domain was very great, almost catching up with the top 10 disciples. Some people thought that Jiang Qin's reputation was great, but his strength was not as good as the top 10 disciples. Others thought that Jiang Qin's strength was extraordinary. Perhaps he could already be ranked in the top 10. Moreover, some people also thought of something, and they found Jiang Qin more and more extraordinary. The rules of the Sifang Divine Institute were that if one wanted to spar or fight, they had to come to the dojo. Previously, when Jiang Chun crippled Jiang Jiuqing, there was no dojo. He directly started the fight outside his cave. Jiang Chun did not receive any punishment for violating the rules of the Sifang Divine Institute. Thinking about it carefully, some people naturally felt that there was something wrong. At this moment, Jiang Chun stood in the air and looked at Li Muge with a smile. "Why aren't you making your move?" "Wait a minute," Li Muge said softly. He had been standing there for a long time without seeing him move. This caused Jiang Chun to be confused, not knowing what Li Muge was up to. After another 10 breaths, Li Muge glanced around and said, "Let's fight." "And you didn't make your move before, but now you want to fight? What's going on?" Jiang Chun asked curiously. He did not care much about this battle. After all, before the fight even began, Jiang Chun already knew the outcome of the battle. Therefore, he appeared to be very calm. "There weren't many people before, so not many people saw me defeating you." Li Muge stroked his fringe and said, "I'm destined to defeat you today and win the reputation. I'll let the disciples of the inner domain know how strong I am." Puff! Jiang Chun almost spat out a mouthful of blood. "So you've been waiting for so long because there are too few spectators? Big brother, have you ever thought that if you lose, wouldn't it be very embarrassing? Go ahead." Jiang Chun waved his hand, looking a little bored. "You go first," Li Muge said seriously. "My cultivation is higher than yours, so I'll let you make the first move." As soon as these words came out, Jiang Chen's expression suddenly became strange. "Let me make a move? Are you sure? With this move, I'm afraid you won't even have the chance to attack." Boom! At this moment, Jiang Chun did not stand on ceremony. The power of heaven and earth in his body exploded as the Emperor's vines appeared behind him. Then he punched out, and the purplish gold vines accompanied by a reddish gold fist light came down together. "Come on!" Li Muge seemed very confident. With a loud shout, the spiritual power in his body burst out, but he did not make a move. He seemed to want to forcefully resist this attack. This caused Jiang Chun to be speechless. He rolled his eyes and said, "You're gone?" Boom! As soon as he said that, everyone saw the reddish gold fist light bombarding Li Muge's body. His protective spiritual power shattered on the spot. Even his chest had caved in. Blood spurted out of his mouth, his face was pale, and his eyes were filled with horror. Before he could react, the purplish gold vines rushed over and, like a dragon's tail, fiercely swung at Li Muge's face. Crack! At this moment, everyone heard the sound of bones breaking. Looking at Li Muge again, his entire face was distorted. The bridge of his nose collapsed, and he spat out blood, accompanied by several teeth. "It hurts just looking at it." It really hurts." Many people gasped. Seeing this scene with their own eyes, it was as if the vines had hit their faces. Some people couldn't help but touch their faces, secretly rejoicing that the vine didn't hit their faces. "You!" At this moment, Li Muge broke down and fell from the sky. He glared at Jiang Chun and fainted after saying, "You. Let me make a move?" "Big brother, if you let me make a move, you're really done for." Jiang Chun curled his lips. Li Muge, 9th in the inner yard, lost. Big news! Li Muge was defeated by the new disciple Jiang Chun in one move. Defeated. Jiang Chun is ranked 9th in the inner yard. After a brief silence, there was a thunderous noise in the training hall. Many people could not believe that Li Muge, who was ranked 9th, was defeated just like that. Moreover, he was defeated so thoroughly. One move, he could not even block one move. He even said he would let Jiang Chun make a move. "This move is really good," someone ridiculed. In the future, Don't call him Li Muge, and don't call him senior brother. Call him Li One Move. Many people laughed. They felt that Li Muge had really lost face this time. He even wanted to destroy my cultivation. How ignorant, Jiangchen muttered. He did not destroy Li Muge and turned to fly toward the cave residence. After all, he had to account for what he did with Hua Liani. No matter what, she was still a pure and unmarried girl. However, when Jiangchen arrived outside the cave residence, he hesitated. He did not know how to explain, let alone what to say. Could he just say, "Hey, I slept with you. What do you want?" That was not appropriate, was it? But to ask Jiangchen to say some emotional words, or ask him to comfort someone, or admit his mistake and admit defeat, Jiangchen did not know how to do any of those things. "I'm your wife. Her breasts are bigger than yours. Press your breasts and talk." Suddenly, Jiangchen's ears twitched. He seemed to hear someone quarreling in his cave residence. When he listened carefully, he realized that it was his 3 disciples who were quarreling. Jiangchen stood outside the cave residence. After listening for a while, his expression became quite strange. It was because Bai Fengyu, Nayland Mayer, and Hua Liani were quarreling about who would be Jiangchen's wife. "I treat you as my disciples, but you want to be my wife." Jiangchen wanted to cry his eyes out. What kind of disciples did he accept in this life? With the idea of protecting his chastity, Jiangchen walked into the cave residence with a straight face. "Master, you came back just in time. Tell me, should we talk according to the size of the breasts when arranging the concubines?" When Jiangchen heard that, the serious expression that he had just put on collapsed in an instant. He looked at Nayland Mayer and could not help but roll his eyes. "Who told you that the concubines are arranged according to the size of their breasts?" Nayland Mayer blinked her beautiful eyes and said coquettishly, "My breasts are bigger than theirs. I've already consummated with him. I'm the wife." At this moment, Hua Liani arrogantly walked to Jiangchen's side. She patted Jiangchen's shoulder and comforted him. "Don't worry, although I slept with you, I'll take responsibility." "You'll take responsibility?" Jiangchen was dumbfounded. What was going on? Was she not acting according to the script? Chapter 178. Jiangchen thought that it would be difficult to solve this problem. After all, he was a man, so he would have taken advantage of her. But now, it seemed that the situation was different from what Jiangchen thought. "Although you're a little young, you're not bad-looking." Hua Liani seemed to have thought about it. She said seriously, "And you're a good person. So many beauties like you." So? Jiangchen blinked his eyes and didn't know how to react. "Since you're so popular, it means that you're a good person." Hua Liani smiled and said, "Anyway, I'll get married sooner or later. Now, not only have I broken the curse, but I've also found a good husband. It's the best of both worlds." Then, Hua Liani comforted him again. "Don't worry, I'll take responsibility." Jiangchen was dumbfounded. After living for 2 lives, this was the first time he encountered such a situation. But now it seemed that this problem was solved. But Jiangchen's heart soon tensed up, because Bai Fengyu and Nayland Mayer wanted to sleep with him too. "What the hell? All of you, train hard." Jiangchen turned serious. A cold light flickered in his eyes. "You're fooling around all day long. What a scandal." After saying that, Jiangchen turned around and left his cave residence. He had a feeling that if he stayed with these 3 disciples, they might really sleep with him one day. Following the principle of maintaining his chastity, Jiangchen went to Nianchang's cave residence after leaving his cave residence. He planned to live with Nianchanga. "What's wrong with you? You don't live in your own cave residence, but you want to live with a bachelor like me?" Nianchanga was confused. 3 beauties. You just abandoned them like this? "Shut up." Jiangchen glared at her. "If it weren't for you, how could it be like this?" "Oh, you're still pretending to be innocent." Nianchanga curled her lips, but suddenly, her expression became serious. He frowned and rubbed his chin. After thinking for a while, he asked, "You really don't know what Hualiani's curse is?" "You know?" Jiangchen was stunned. He carefully looked at Nianchanga and asked, "What do you mean?" She's not suffering from a curse, Nien Changa said. In terms of curses, if the Skyspan Shrine claims to be second, no one would dare claim to be first. The moment I saw her, I knew she wasn't cursed. Jiang Chun was dumbfounded. After all this time, Hualini was not cursed? Then, what was going on with Hualini? There seems to be something wrong with her physique, Nien Changa said. It seems like some kind of holy physique. Holy body? Jiang Chun immediately became spirited. After all, there were too few saintly bodies in this world. Occasionally, one or two saintly bodies could be seen. Some saintly bodies even died before they could be awakened. What's more, some people didn't even know they had a saintly body. Take Jiang Lu, for example. If he had not met Jiang Chun, his sacred body of Archean age would not have been awakened in his life. There was also Bai Fengyu. If Jiang Chun had not helped to resolve the yin poison, Bai Fengyu would have died. I have to ask Master about this. Nien Changa said, Wait a moment. I've already sent a message. I think Master will reply to me soon. Just as she finished speaking, a shadow suddenly appeared in front of Nien Changa. It was an old man with white hair and a youthful face. He looked like an immortal, but when he smiled, there was a hint of cynicism. My good disciple, the woman you mentioned should be the All-Spirit's sacred body. The old man said, I've checked some ancient books. That woman should be the All-Spirit's sacred body. Master, just as Nien Changa opened her mouth, she found that the shadow had disappeared. This was a blow to Nien Changa. She secretly wondered why her master was so busy. All-Spirit's sacred body. At this moment, Jiang Chun was moved. He had heard of this sacred body, but he had never seen it before. According to legend, the All-Spirit's sacred body was naturally surrounded by many remnant souls. Wherever it was, the remnant souls would gather. However, remnant souls were dead after all. The yin qi was concentrated, and some remnant souls even had a trace of consciousness and resentment from when they were alive. Therefore, those who had the All-Spirit's sacred body would be devoured by these remnant souls in most cases. The All-Spirit's sacred body is surrounded by yin qi. This yin qi is different from the yin qi of the Taiyin sacred body. Nien Changa explained, this kind of yin qi can only be resolved by yang qi. That's the principle. Jiang Chun was relieved. At the beginning of the world, there were yin qi and yang qi. Between heaven and earth, everything was relative. The moon was yin, and the sun was yang. Women were yin, and men were yang. Everything here contained the true meaning of the great Tao of yin and yang. The All-Spirit's sacred body was surrounded by yin qi. From the moment of birth, it was deep in the soul and even the flesh. Such yin qi could not be resolved by basking in the sun. The simplest way was to merge yin and yang, just like consummating the marriage. This isn't right. Jiang Chun suddenly thought of a problem. The female descendants of the Hua family were all cursed. Then, did this mean that every female descendant of the Hua family had the All-Spirit's sacred body? If that was the case, then the bloodline of the Hua family was too powerful. The descendants of the flower goddess are really fierce, Jiang Chun muttered. The flower goddess had never married, but she had children. He did not know what the flower goddess had done in the past. Her female descendants were all so powerful, and all of them had the All-Spirit's sacred body. Fortunately, the Hua family did not know about this. Otherwise, given 1,000 years, the Hua family would definitely become one of the top forces in the godless continent. The All-Spirit's sacred body is a natural spirit summoner. Nien Changa said, in the future, as her cultivation grows, the battle spirits she can summon will become more and more terrifying. Sometimes, she can even summon several battle spirits at once. Jiang Chun naturally knew about this. The All-Spirit's sacred body was originally entangled by remnant souls. As long as the cultivation was in place and the means were enough, the remnant souls entangled around her could be summoned. You just said, what is your sect called? Jiang Chun was suddenly stunned. Only then did he remember that Nien Changa seemed to have said he was a disciple of the Heavenly Temple. This, back then, when Jiang Chun first met young Master Luo, he also casually made up an identity and claimed to be the successor of the Heavenly Temple. However, at that time, Jiang Chun did not think that there would really be a sect like the Heavenly Temple in this world. And now, Jiang Chun, this fake, had met the real thing. The Heavenly Temple. Nian Chang'e said, but the world basically does not know about my sect. We never come out, and we also do not participate in the struggles of the world. Ahem. Jiang Chun was quite embarrassed. After a few light coughs, he planned to sit down and cultivate, and did not dwell on this matter anymore. However, Nian Chang'e took out a portrait and placed it in front of Jiang Chun, saying, some time ago, we received news that in the area of solitary North City, someone was pretending to be a member of the Heavenly Temple. Take a look. Do you know him? Chapter 179. When Jiang Chun heard this, his expression instantly became strange. He glanced at the portrait from the corner of his eye and covered his eyes on the spot. This, I don't know. Jiang Chun shook his head and said, who is this? He looks quite handsome. You really don't know? Nian Chang'e blinked his eyes and said, why do I feel that he looks like you? Nonsense. Not as handsome as me. Jiang Chun hurriedly said. Without waiting for Nian Chang'e to speak again, he sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. Nian Chang'e stood in the same place, looked at the portrait a few times, and then looked at Jiang Chun. He felt that Jiang Chun was exactly the same as the person in the portrait. When he thought of what his master had told him when he came out for experience, Nian Chang'e's eyes could not help but flash a trace of excitement. Whether it's you or not, I'll go and ask around. Nian Chang'e thought, and then began to cultivate. The following days passed very peacefully. Occasionally, Bai Fengyu and the others would come to make trouble, and Jiang Chun had always had a straight face, pretending to be noble. Since defeating Li Muge, the disciples of the inner courtyard had also been much more well-behaved. Until 10 days later. On this day, Jiang Chun was cultivating, but the door of the cave residence was pushed open. Taking a closer look, wasn't it Li Muge? What's the matter? Jiang Chun frowned and said, before coming in, don't you know to knock on the door? I'm here to issue a letter of challenge. Li Muge's expression was gloomy, and his eyes flashed with strong resentment. Because of Jiang Chun, he lost face in front of so many people, and because of Jiang Chun, he had now dropped from 9th to 10th. Although the strength ranking of the inner courtyard disciples was just an empty title. But Li Muge cared very much. Still want to fight? Jiang Chun was stunned and said, have you been beaten, silly? You can't beat me, so you still want to fight? This time, I will definitely take revenge, Li Muge said in a deep voice, threw a letter of challenge at Jiang Chun's feet, and said, tomorrow, I want to defeat you in front of everyone. Oh! Jiang Chun nodded and said, all right, if you insist, then I'll keep you company. Then, Li Muge turned and left without saying anything else. Nian Chang'e frowned and fixed her eyes on Jiang Chun's face. She asked again, is the person in the portrait really not you? That's not it. Jiang Chun said seriously, is the person in the portrait as handsome as I am? What a pity. Nian Chang'e sighed and said, my master said that if we could find this person, we would invite him to enter the sky-reaching divine palace and go to the ancient sky-reaching relics. Ancient heaven-span relic. It really exists? Jiang Chun exclaimed. Ancient heaven-span ruins. Jiang Chun had heard of it before, but he had always thought that it was merely a legend. After all, no one had ever seen it before. Perhaps someone had gone in, but most likely did not come out alive. What a pity you're not the person in the portrait, Nian Chang'e said. You won't have the chance to enter the ancient heaven-span ruins. The moment these words came out, Jiang Chun immediately became anxious. One had to know, inside the ancient heaven-span ruins, it was said that there was the inheritance of the ancient divine king. The gods of the ancient era were far stronger than the present by a large margin. That was caused by the environment of heaven and earth. And the gods of that time had omnipotent means, able to suppress the universe with a raise of a hand. Although Jiang Chun was strong, he also knew that in the long river of history, there were plenty of people stronger than him, especially in the ancient era. Any random master god back then could be stronger than the current era's divine king. That if I say that the person in the portrait is me, would you believe me? Jiang Chun said with a strange expression. It's really you? Nian Changa stared and said, didn't you deny it before? How would I know what the Heavenspan Temple is looking for me for? What if they want to settle scores with me? Jiang Chun said crossly. The Heavenspan Temple was mysterious, had a long heritage, and had an incomparably deep foundation. If the Heavenspan Temple wanted to find trouble with Jiang Chun, with Jiang Chen's current strength, wouldn't he be doomed? Don't worry, the Heavenspan Temple won't stoop to your level. Nian Changa smiled and said, then find some time to go to the Heavenspan Temple with me. When the time comes, we'll enter the ancient Heavenspan ruins to take a look. If you're lucky, you might even get the inheritance of the ancient gods. Okay. Jiang Chen nodded, his heart burning with passion. That was the ancient Heavenspan ruins. There was definitely the inheritance of the ancient gods inside. There might even be a lord-level inheritance. As for whether the inheritance of the ancient gods was inside, that was unknown. Maybe not. In short, they would only know when they went. Next, the two continued to cultivate. The next day, Jiang Chen got up, left the cave abode, and walked in the direction of the training hall. Nian Changa also followed, saying that she was going to watch the battle because she was bored. He's here. In today's battle, Jiang Chun will suffer. When Jiang Chen arrived at the training hall, he discovered that many people were looking at him with mocking faces. Between their words, there was even a hint of schadenfreude. This made Jiang Chun very puzzled. What's going on? Are you sure that the defeated opponent can defeat me today? Anyway, Jiang Chun did not believe it. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Right at this moment, Li Mugei's voice came from the center of the training hall. Today, he was wearing a scarlet armor and holding a golden longsword, looking majestic like a god of war. You really care about your face? Coming out to fight and you still have to dress up? Jiang Chen teased. But your dressing is not very good. Are you blind? This is the scarlet armor. The armor personally forged by a 6-star weapon refiner. Li Mugei shouted angrily. This sword is called Golden Light, and it was also forged by a 6-star weapon refiner. And then? Jiang Chen asked curiously. And then, today, you will lose without a doubt, Li Mugei said with a serious gaze. As soon as these words came out, Jiang Chen understood. Li Mugei was so confident this time, so it turned out that he had gotten 2 6-star armors. 6-star armors were indeed very powerful, and they could allow an ordinary cultivator to fight across realms. However, the 6-star armors were not enough in front of Jiang Chen. Do you have any armors? Nian Changa asked. No, I don't need that. Jiang Chen shook his head and said, what's the use of a 6-star armor? In my eyes, it's just a pile of scrap metal. Why don't you take one, or you will be at a disadvantage? Nian Changa seemed to be a little worried, and then took out a dry chi from the space ring. Boom! At the instant Gan Chi appeared, an extremely violent aura erupted, and it even carried a strand of miserable killing intent. It seemed that this dry chi lived for fighting. I came out from the sect, and I didn't bring any armor. You can take this dry chi and use it first. Nian Changa looked very embarrassed. Don't mind it, it's only level 9. Jiang Chun was speechless. A Class 9 armor was a priceless treasure in any sect or force. As a result, Nian Changa was a little embarrassed. What, do you think a level 9 armor is too low? Is the foundation of the Heavenly Temple so deep? A random armor is level 9? Jiang Chun thought to himself, and became more and more curious about the Heavenly Temple. Chapter 180. The dry chi was blood-red all over. As soon as it appeared, it was filled with a murderous aura. What level of armor is this? Look, it's very strong, very domineering. Many people in the surroundings cried out in surprise because they felt the fluctuations emitted by the dry chi sword. However, only Li Mugei looked confident. He was wearing armor and holding a sharp sword. Today, he was sure that he could defeat Jiang Chun and regain his face. Let's start. Jiang Chun held the dry chi, looked at Li Muge, and said mockingly, "Today, do you still want to give me a handicap?" "Yes," Li Muge said confidently. "This time, I'll give you a handicap of 2. Jiang Chun heard this and seemed to be in a difficult position. After all, if Li Muge gave him a handicap, he would have already lost. How could he give him a second handicap? "Do you want me to give you a handicap? This is very difficult to do." "Then give me a handicap," Jiang Chun muttered, waved the dry chi in his hand, and said, "I'm coming. Come on," Li Muge said confidently, his eyes flashing with arrogance. Boom! The next moment, Jiang Chun waved the dry chi and slashed directly. A loud explosion sounded in the air, and there was a blood-red brilliance, like a river, jumping across. The horrifying murderous aura was like the appearance of the heroic spirits on the battlefield, and the miserable howls were frightening. The red brilliance flashed, and the sharpness soared, slashing down at Li Muge. Li Muge was stunned on the spot. He could feel that he could not block this attack at all. Bang! The next second, the dry chi slashed on Li Muge's body, splitting his armor and shattering his protective spiritual power. In the end, just like the previous battle, Li Muge was cut down in the air, lying on the ground, unable to move. As expected of Li Muyi, this is a familiar scene. Everyone had a strange look on their faces. They didn't expect that Li Muge, who had 2 6-star armors, would be defeated again in such a situation. How boring! Jiang Chun curled his lips. This kind of battle was meaningless to him. Even without Ganqi, Jiang Chun could defeat Li Muge with 1 punch. However, Jiang Chun felt that Li Muge was quite interesting. At the very least, it could bring him a little bit of happiness. "Are you Jiang Chun?" Suddenly, an extremely disdainful voice came from the 3 palaces in the sky. Listening carefully, it seemed to be coming from the Earth courtyard. At the same time, the crowd saw a young man standing in the air. As he blinked, it was as if the sun, moon, and stars were floating in the depths of his eyes. "Yes." Jiang Chun raised his eyebrows and asked, "What is it?" "I've already applied to the Earth Institute to spar with you here in 3 days. The young man narrowed his eyes. "Don't say that I'm bullying you because of my cultivation level. Just because you touched the people of my Jiang clan, I had to do something." When Jiang Chun heard this, he immediately felt relieved. The young man in front of him should be a disciple of the Earth Institute, Jiang Chun's subordinate, Jiang Moluo. Previously, when Jiang Chun crippled Jiang Jiuqing, he knew that Jiang Moluo would come to him sooner or later. Even Jiang Lingxiao of the Jiang clan from the Heavenly Courtyard would come. However, Jiang Chun didn't expect that the Earth Institute would actually agree to Jiang Moluo's request for a spar. As a result, this matter was a little tricky. After all, those who could enter the Earth Institute were all geniuses. Ordinary cultivators couldn't compare to them. Jiang Chun thought that he was very strong, but he also understood that those true geniuses wouldn't be much weaker than him in the same cultivation level. Moreover, Jiang Moluo's cultivation level had reached the upper level of the Venerable Realm. Jiang Chun could easily defeat ordinary cultivators of the Venerable Realm, but Jiang Chun wasn't confident in facing those geniuses of the Venerable Realm. After all, humans weren't invincible. There was a tomorrow outside Sky Mountain. This guy's aura is strong. Jiang Chun stared at Jiang Moluo. After measuring the strength of both sides, he came to a conclusion. If he didn't use the forbidden technique and the ever-changing heavenly lamp, it would be very difficult for him to defeat Jiang Moluo. 3 days later, right? "Okay, I'll wait for you here." Jiang Chun nodded. Although he felt that it was very tricky and he felt pressured, he didn't back down. After saying that, Jiang Chun turned and left. He wasn't in the mood to continue staying here. "You're just an abandoned pawn." Just as he turned, Jiang Moluo spoke again. This time, he only said the word abandoned pawn. Jiang Chun's figure suddenly paused, but he didn't turn back. He only replied coldly, I'll return to the Jiang clan sooner or later. When that time comes, the abandoned pawn in your eyes will be your master. You have to be alive to go back, Jiang Moluo said contemptuously. Now, if you weren't in the Sifang Divine Courtyard, I'm afraid your corpse would be lying outside. Not only will the Jiang clan not let you go, but the Martial Pavilion also wants your life. If you want my life, come and get it. Jiang Chen's eyes narrowed. My body is in this world. If you want to take it, I'll be waiting for you at any time. After saying that, Jiang Chen took off again and left with Nian Chang'e. Along the way, Jiang Chen didn't speak. He seemed a little silent. He was thinking that if he used the forbidden technique, he could defeat Jiang Moluo. However, using the forbidden technique would cause too much damage to himself. If the black energy appeared in his soul again, Jiang Chen didn't think that he could easily pass through the heavenly punishment again. It was even very likely that he would be killed by the heavenly punishment. As for using the ever-changing heavenly lamp, Jiang Chen didn't even think about it. Once this kind of thing was known by others, it would probably cause a huge commotion. After all, those top sects and those geniuses wouldn't watch a person with the ever-changing heavenly lamp rise to power. Moreover, Jiang Chen's ever-changing heavenly lamp was already lit up. Jiang Chen understood the principle that treasures arouse the envy of others. You can't beat him, right? After returning to the cave abode, Nian Chang'e opened her mouth and asked very directly. Although it was a question, Nian Chang'e was very clear about the gap between Jiang Chen and Jiang Moluo. If their realms were the same, Nian Chang'e could be sure that Jiang Chen could kill the other party with one slap. However, they were both geniuses. How could there be such a huge difference in realms? A slight difference was like a chasm, very difficult to cross. If I don't use the special technique, I can basically be sure that I can't beat him. Jiang Chen sighed and said, I haven't lost a battle in my life yet. Then let's go, Nian Chang'e said. Go? Go where? Jiang Chen frowned. You want me to back down? Is that possible? No. What I mean is go to the ancient Heavenspan ruins. Even if you don't obtain the inheritance of the gods inside, it can also increase your cultivation. Nian Chang'e said, if you're unwilling to back down, don't want to lose, and don't want to use special methods, now that I think about it, there's only this way. When Jiang Chen heard that, he didn't think much either and immediately agreed. People relied on themselves to do things. This was also something that was forced out of him. People had to do things, and things had to be forced. If one didn't think of a way, this life and human affairs would be too pale. Go! At this moment, Nian Chang'e directly took out an array platform. Under the appearance of array patterns, the surrounding space was distorting. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.